everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. For some reason, the only individual I can see is Anthony, which it's a great honor. I mean, Anthony's a good-looking fella.
This t-shirt, brother.
And he's got the Joe Taylor Group T-shirt on, which is even more amazing. So I'm going to start working on some of those things, but let me just go ahead and introduce Phil, introduce the subject, introduce kind of the concept that we're working off of today. The market is challenging right now. Interest rates are higher than they've been in quite a while. Inventory's really low, which is a unique kind of conflux of ideas where, historically speaking, when interest rates have risen, so has inventory. Homes sit, they don't move. Well, right now you've got people sitting on 3.5% mortgages, and less deals are being done, but property values are maintaining, if not growing in different marketplaces. And so then we have this situation where real estate agents are starting to reevaluate their relationships. They're reevaluating their business plans, they're reevaluating their business models, they're reevaluating their brokerage relationships. They're considering, things like teams at a rate that is much higher than in times past. We're coming out of the summer season. Recruiting season, attracting season, whatever you want to call it, has always been October to March, and really gets heightened around November and February, and then December and January is like a feast because people's businesses slow down and that's the time they move. So I felt like it'd be a really good time to revisit. We did this last year and I wanted to do it again, and Phil is so gracious to be willing to join us. In my opinion, when it comes to all things real estate, but really when it comes to relationship-based agent attraction conversations, Phil Jones has the most relevant information and principles for us to utilize as real estate practitioners, yes, with our clients and with other real estate practitioners. The spirit behind it is people need help. Like some of the individuals on this call I know are some of the best real estate practitioners in the industry. And so if we are not communicating correctly with these individuals, it will impact our worlds in that our teams, our brokerages, whatever it may be, won't grow at the rate they should. But it'll also impact their world because how we communicate with them should be able to help them understand how we can help them. But if our communication skills are not up to par and we're not using curiosity and empathy and all of these things that we should be using to connect with individuals, then ultimately what we're doing is we're not just hurting our world, we're hurting theirs. And so with that, Phil, I just wanted to kind of turn the floor over to you. We're so grateful that you're willing to join us. I love when you start to talk about agent attraction and exactly what to say when attracting agents, but just human communication in general, because it's a lost art, and you're doing so much to recover, especially fighting against technology and all those things, to get us back as human beings communicating with each other. And I can't think of a better amphitheater to be speaking about this than when it comes to attracting agents to your team or brokerage. So Phil, we're turning the floor over.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Thank you. And it's great to be here. It's great also to see some familiar, friendly faces. So Anthony, good to see you. Ginny, great to see you too. Katie Day, long time no see as well. It's nice to see some people that I know. Amy here as well. Folks that I've bumped into in other environments. So good to see so many of you, and good to see some new faces too that aren't maybe so familiar to me, but perhaps you maybe know my work in some way, shape or form. Joe asked me to do this, and my commitment to be able to do it is to say I'm not going to show up and deliver a pre-baked presentation about not delivering pre-baked presentations, right? Like that would be in some way disingenuous or not congruent with how we can do better at agent attraction. My intention over this time period is to say, let's get scrappy with it. Let's look at what is actually really going on and get into the weeds together to say, how do we get better at all areas of agent attraction? And then leave this session with very practical, specific things that you can do from an outreach point of view, from a conversational development point of view, from a past prospect point of view. So we're going to hit some very, very tactical, practical things. Also, being in this small group environment, at any given point in time, if you've got a yeah, but, or a how about, or any form of interaction that you want to bring in that wants to stall the conversation, like raise your hand in an old-fashioned way, not necessarily using the Zoom button. Like, I can see you all. Those of you that have your cameras on, I see your faces. So raise your hand. We're bringing you into the convo. And similarly, I'm following the chat along here. And right now, the only contributor to the chat is Anthony's AI that is going to be doing a better job of note-taking, I believe, than Anthony. So I think that's what the AI is in the chat for, which is all good news. So use the chat, light it up. Let's all be in one conversation. But to help me get some context on this agent attraction piece from a starting point of view, how many new agents are you looking to be able to bring into your organization personally over the next 12 months? Hit me a number in the chat, just so I've got an understanding of what we're looking to try and do. So we got a good number of 10s. We got a big 500 out there. We got some 25s. We got some 30s. And what's interesting about these numbers is you can imagine them. If this was a dinner party and you wanted to have 10 people, 30 people, invite 50 people to a wedding, etc., what would be the thing you'd do to start with? You'd start with some understanding of saying, who do I want to invite? Who would I like to show up? Who would I like to be able to spend the rest of my life hanging out with? Yet what many people fail to do from an agent attraction point of view is to decide exactly who it is they're looking for and who could be a good fit. Answer me this right now, just with either a show of the hands. Is do any of you have anybody that is part of your team network that you wish you didn't have? Right? Is they become a drain, they become a nuisance, they slow you down, you don't get the momentum that you look for. And what ends up happening is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And the result of which is your good energy gets spent on with their bad energy, gets blended, and it slows down your momentum. What many of us forget in this environment is that we have the right to choose the people we partner with. Just most people fail to execute that right to choose. Who in this room has children or has been a child? Should be somewhere like most of us once again, is I want you to imagine a scenario. Scenario is this, is you're in a shopping center, you've got a couple of kids alongside you. You have that couple of kids alongside you, you see something in a store you quite like, you walk towards that thing to take a closer look, you pick that thing off the rack, you then turn back round to the kids to ask for their opinion, and in that moment, the kids are gone. For most of you, that would be panic, devastation, despair. What to do, what to do, what to do. I'm seeing two of you that are like, yes, finally some peace and quiet. Realization kicks in that then you do have to find the children. Knowing that you have to find the children, how well would you describe them to a stranger in the street? You'd probably give them everything, right? Photo on your phone, what they were wearing, kind of places they might be attracted to. You'd give a picture-perfect description because you knew the better the description you could give of the missing person, the more likely you are to be able to find them. That's what we do with missing people. The agents that you don't have in your team right now are also missing people. If you're looking for missing people, firstly, take the time to define who your missing people are. Because if you're looking for anybody's and everybody's, you, my friends, come across as desperate. What you're looking for is a warm pulse or somebody that is capable of producing, or they put certain numbers in the past. But what that says from an agent attraction point of view is you want their production, their volume, not their personality and their candor and the attributes that they bring towards your bigger team. So I'd encourage, first of all, every single one of you to get crystal clear on who your missing people are. And then what I'd look to be able to do is I'd look to be able to build a list of people that is bigger than the number of people you would like. So if I'm Katie Day and say I want to bring 10 towards my team, if you want to have 10 people join your team, we can either hope, wish, and pray that they discover you and choose you, or you can do some work ahead of time and say, well, I'm going to pick at least my 10 people that I'm looking to be able to nurture, to prospect towards, to be able to develop. The very term prospecting comes from like the old ages of when people were prospecting for gold. They were digging for buried treasure. They were trying to find the precious metal in and amongst all of the other junk. We know within the world of agents right now that there is a certain type of person we do want and a certain type of person we don't want. Instead, we don't take the time to be able to prospect towards these people properly. So my invitation from an agent attraction point of view is firstly, take the time to define your missing people. Now, I'd get as picture perfect as possible, knowing that you probably don't just want one type of person. What types of agents would you like to bring to your team? Let's hit me some of this in the chat. What might be a type of agent you'd like to be able to bring towards your team? Joe says motivated. Riley says with integrity. These are hard things to be able to identify from a distance. Energetic, coachable, self-driven. So let me play this out another way. Katie, open your microphone up for me for a second. You say you want to bring 10 people to your team. What don't you want?
What don't I want?
Yeah.
Lazy people.
Okay. What would be the definition of a lazy person? How could I spot a lazy person from a distance in the world of real estate?
Look at a room of realtors. No. As far as finding a lazy, that would probably be difficult to determine just by looking at someone.
Okay. But you can look at their behavior, understand their attributes, etc., that would have them realized as lazy, right? Is you don't necessarily want to bring somebody towards your team that is actively doing everything they possibly can to not meet with buyers and sellers of homes, is perhaps hiding behind a camera as opposed to interacting with real people, is looking to have people show up and find them as opposed to actually get involved into the mess of helping buyers and sellers navigate transactions at this time. You're probably also not necessarily looking for people that are newly licensed, that are looking for you to spoon feed every step of the way. Certainly not all 10, correct?
Yeah.
But if we fail to define our missing people, then what ends up happening is we're looking for anybody's and everybody's. If you are good at agent attraction, but you don't know who you're looking for, what you're quite likely to stumble upon is other people's waste. Catch that for a second. You're going to stumble upon other people's waste. Doesn't feel so good that way around, right? Is that you think you've just added 10 people to your team, but what you've really got is somebody else's rejects pile because they decided they didn't want them anymore. And if you're not choosing your teammates, it means that they are choosing you, and they might be doing it for all the wrong reasons. So if I'm only looking for 10, I want a list of maybe 10 times that 10 of people that I believe that demonstrate the attributes of the kind of people that I'm looking for. Because I don't want to be attractive to anybody and everybody. I want to be attractive to the kind of people that I'd look to be able to do business with. And there is a finite number of people that you're looking to be able to bring on. I would probably look for 3 different types of missing people. So can you identify 3 avatars of people that are missing from your team right now? Like if this is a soccer team, you might be looking at it and going, like, I need somebody to play the role of goal scorer, number 9 position, somebody who's going to put the ball in the back of the net, somebody I know I can trust, somebody I know that if the ball lands anywhere within the 18-yard box, chances are that they're going to find the back of the net or at least hit the target. What I'm looking for is a workhorse who can play in multiple different positions, who's just good caliber of somebody in the team that can drive energy and drive rapport. And what else I'm looking for is to underpin the future with a couple of rookies that are full of great talent that might be able to move towards blank. But choose yourself 3 very specific personas. Because now what we've got is, because we know the fish we're looking to catch, you can start to be able to create the bait that's attractive towards that fish. The mistake that many people make when they're building marketing collateral around agent attraction is they build marketing collateral that says, look at me, as opposed to come with me. And what the type of people you're looking to be able to come on the journey with you to go the distance is you want them to be inspired by your leadership to go on a longer term journey, not impressed with your results. They're not going to be able to emulate your results, but they can follow your lead. So look for people that want to come with you as opposed to look at you. and then decide 3 very specific avatars. And what's interesting here is, Joe, your avatars could be different to Ryan's, could be different to Austin's, could be different to Matt's. That's a good thing. People want to be wanted. And if you're not identifying the type of person that you want to do business with, chances are you're in trouble. One of these avatars, the easiest to be able to recruit, is you 2 to 3 years ago. Whoever you were 2 to 3 years ago is the easiest person to recruit, because they believe you can help them get to the next level because you've done it. And I would encourage all of you to have at least one of those versions within your team, because you are insanely attractive to that person's success story when they can see a future version of themselves in you. What I'd look for with your 3 avatars: something aspirational, you 2 to 3 years ago, plus something that is going to rely on, provide some form of younger mentorship to you, something that is going to force you to get better from below. Maybe somebody that's 20 years younger than you, maybe somebody who's approaching the business from a completely different angle. Now what you've got is a team structure or a team dynamic that feels like it's growing. It's not just growing in quantity, it's growing in quality too, forcing you to be better, lighting a fire underneath you. If you're serious about agent attraction, I'd make missing people posters. We've done this with offices around the world in a variety of different industries, is we've actually created names of these avatars, produced graphics around them, written descriptions about who these people are. I'm looking for 1 Colin, 3 Sallys and 5 Abigails. Great. All with descriptions, all with images around them. Because you get what you focus on. And if you're focusing on anybody and everybody, what you may well find is that you are a busy fool dealing with lazy people or non-committed people or people who are looking for the easy button. Joe.
Oh, I was just like church style, like testifying, like, yes, I've been there. Katie knows it too. Like we do this because we just get anybody and we're just happy to have everybody. And then we find out that we're just sitting there trying to motivate people that, aren't motivated. And it's like, so we're fulfilling our goal, which is get people, but then the people we get aren't the people anyways. So I was just testifying.
Having done a lot of work in the direct sales network marketing industry through my years, is remember that duplication requires there to be activity to duplicate and compound. Like you can have 1,000 people doing fuck all, and you've got 1,000 times nothing, right? Plus all the work to manage 1,000 times nothing. So what you're looking for is some level of production. And even right now is, remember this fact, is that it's easier to give birth than it is to raise the dead. And I think in a market that is as challenging as it is right now, if you have dead wood in your organization, stop trying to resuscitate it, look to be able to give birth to new. And that level of displacement will drive the right kind of energy. If you're giving energy towards dead wood, then what's happening is you're appearing desperate. And for agent attraction to work at its most prolific level, you got to look like you want people but don't need them. I repeat, you've got to look like you want people but don't need them. If you look like you need them to be successful, that is a giant turnoff. So you need your confidence, your momentum, and you're like, we're going this way. I'd love you to come with me. But if you don't, I'll find somebody else that does want to come this way. Because where we're going is important. What we're doing matters. And the way in which we're doing it is going to work. That's the level of belief that you need towards where it is you're going. Once you know who the people are that you're looking to do business with, you can then start to put yourself on their radar.
Hey, Phil,
Go ahead.
I got a question for you. You talked a little bit there about aspiration. What, if any, difference do you see between, somebody like Anthony being inspirational versus somebody like Anthony being aspirational? Am I just splitting hairs there? Or is there an actual difference to say, I'm inspired by Katie, I'm inspired by Jenny, I'm inspired or like I aspire to be Katie. Like, am I splitting hairs, or is there an actual difference?
If somebody inspires to be, that's like trying to be the Beatles cover band. If somebody is inspired by, that's Oasis. What we're looking to be able to create, I believe, when you're recruiting others, is people who are inspired by your results, your activity, what you're part of, maybe even your courage to make a change. They're aspirational towards being able to achieve something that has similarities of yours, and they see themselves doing it their way, not copycats. And inspiration and aspiration are both required. We're not splitting hairs, they're just different. Aspiration is I want to be more like you. Inspiration is you provide me some form of fuel to be a better version of self. I'd look for more inspiration than aspiration. Here's what's required also, is 4 ingredients are required as you start to build out a more attractive brand when it comes to agent attraction. The first is visibility. The second is credibility. The third is authenticity. And then the fourth is availability. So visibility, credibility, authenticity, availability. Let's work backwards on those. Availability is like what's in the shop. For you, that could be trainings, events, come to one of our big conferences, let's jump on a call to learn how you can do more with our brokerage. And the trouble is most people start their conversation by saying, here's what's available. Here's what we have in our shop window. Here are all the things that you can get from me. If you start the conversation there, you hit a host of sales resistance. Why do we start with visibility? Well, people should be looking to see you doing better. So I'm just going to use Anthony because I know you here on the call, is if I'm looking to attract more agents, I'm looking to bring visibility towards the fact that I changed brokerage a period of time ago and it's working out great for me. Visibility of that is attractive. If you're looking to bring people with you, note this, nobody wants to be a part of your test. So if you made a decision to switch allegiances, you're being watched and followed by others. And they want to know when you go from being, I'm trying this new thing, to I'm all in. So you want to bring visibility to the fact that your life has got better because things have got easier because, and the more that you can bring visibility towards the fact that you're happier, that you've got more resource, that you're more excited about the future, that things are better for you in your environment than what they could be working somewhere else, that is being watched. It doesn't necessarily trigger an action, but I need to be able to turn up that visibility.
Well, and if I could just add there, Phil, so Katie, if you think about it this way, like so many of us do really good in our ecosystem with launch videos. Like, hey, I'm coming to, like I've changed from there to there. But I love what you're saying, Phil, because we don't often do like a
how's it working out for you?
Yeah,
how's
a year later,
right?
like, I'm here. Yeah. No, that I think that's a great idea because we're so good at the launch video. And Adriana, this would be a great note to make is how are we following up 6 months, a year later to people who've joined our team or joined our brokerage to say, I made the move and here's how it worked out. I think that's a great idea.
And note that there's a maturity of your value proposition today, even versus 12 months ago. Is 12 months ago, 18 months ago, etc. It was like, let's jump on this thing, it's new. Let's jump on this thing, it's exciting. Let's try and get early adopter towards this. Now, there's an objection that exists that didn't exist 18 months ago, which is, am I too late? Did I get to this party, too late? And you don't want to be the one that gets tripped up by that objection. If we know it's coming, we want to control the narrative around it. So what you're looking to be able to do is to bring visibility not only to the fact that financially this is better for you, look at all the intangible pieces of evidence that you want to bring visibility towards. So if your value prop is what? What are the 10 things that are better about being part of your team than somebody else's team? This is what I'm looking to bring visibility towards. If you don't know the 10 things that make your team better than somebody else's circumstances, you're relying upon them guessing. What makes you better? List it, document it, and then your marketing access is bringing visibility to those things. A simple example could even be screen share of a meeting, an event like this, with some documentation and evidence around it that says just spent 3 hours of our life having a detailed conversation about how we can more authentically level up the support services that are made available to new and existing agents to help them have more time freedom. Holy crap. Like, you know, other brokerages aren't doing that. But visibility is where it starts. Credibility is what comes next. Each and every single one of you here is in some way, shape, or form a personal brand, as well as a leader, as well as a real estate professional. By credibility, I mean you should always be working on your future biography. If you cannot update your bio every 6 to 12 months with meaningful additions as to how you've become more qualified and more credible in your craft, you're moving too slow. Think about how your credibility can change when you move from, you know, I did 22 million in GCI versus, as a result of a change of team and brokerage, we've successfully helped 23 families, which is 7 more families than we'd ever helped in the past to be able to move homes. And the result of which is I've been more profitable and being able to provide better services to those families. Shift the narrative and the language about your brag and boast points that say, come with me, not look at me. And that's what I mean by rewriting a bio that is more relevant for this period of time. What credentials?
And that should be, and that's almost tangible, right? Like so many of us have bio. I have a speaker bio on my website. And Adrian, I don't even know the last time we've updated it, but it's probably a healthy exercise to do every 30, 45 days to go like, what's happened over the last 30 or 45 days that's worthy of a bio? Update. And then what credibility does that add? And are we doing visibility around it? I love it.
And then what are you missing? What would be a poster child of credibility that would get you next level? Now, that might be the development of a training center. That might be the starting of an in-community mastermind group. I tell you, the only time you can get to a point that you've finished rewriting your bio is when you get to a one-word bio. If I've got introducing Beyonce, like no further credentials required, right? Done. Once you've got to one-word bio, you can call yourself finished. Your bio writes itself. But until you get to a one-word bio, if you're looking to grow, you should be able to rewrite your bio, your credentials, every 6 months or so, and there should be enough significant evolution. Isn't that attractive? And start to think about what are your missing pegs in your board. So if you are going to be a more attractive leader to join 12 months from now, what could be beneficial additions that make you more attractive? You know, Joe, I'd argue that one of the things that you added to your pegs in the board is the credibility around being an exactly what to say certified guide, right? That's one example of saying that I've got detailed knowledge around a body of work that I can share with the people that are part of our team. It's a differentiator versus others. Joe's also done things to actively grow visibility on the speaking circuit and to be seen to help other agents, to be able to do it without charge and to be able to do it in service of the industry and to do it to be able to get people to level up their own performance. Is that attractive and credible? That's visibility and credibility at work. What else could be attractive is, Joe, I look at what you and Taylor have done through an investing angle and actually being a consumer of the product of which you're encouraging other people to be a consumer of. It's attractive, right? There's added credibility to the fact that you too are an investor in real estate and can teach people inside your organization to be able to build wealth with real estate. It's part of your credibility bio. Every single one of you on this call should have 3, 5, 7 pegs in a board that you're like, if I could get those credentials in place, I would be more attractive a leader to be able to do business with. And if you don't know what they are, you're hoping, wishing, and praying. In my world, there's a big difference to saying I've got a best-selling book because it got the #1 list in one category on Amazon for 4 hours, then I've sold 2.5 million copies of a book that's been translated into 29 different languages and been on the bestseller list for over 5 years. Different credentials, aren't they? So look for the credentials that show you as standing out from somebody else. Because here's the issue that I have from a recruitment point of view, is you've got a few questions that need to be answered. It's, why should I change? Which team or which brokerage should I change to? Then which team within that brokerage? And then which leader within that team? That's a significant series of questions that a prospect needs to go through to find clarity on, to be able to be all in and be fully committed. If you can't help them make those decisions easily along the way with your credibility of being like, you're the one for me, then what they'll do is remain indecisive forever. Biggest risk to agent attraction is the thousands of people that are thinking about considering potentially, possibly making a move. How many people are in that boat right now? Loads. These are the people that we need to be speaking to. And the clearer and cleaner that you can get it for people to come across to you, the better. So this is all work in the background, right? It's all we're doing. We're identifying our missing people. We're then saying, well, actually, am I being seen to be delivering upon the promise of what this was supposed to mean to me? Am I adding to my credibility? Then you look at authenticity. Hit me this in the chat. What problems are solved by people joining your team? Opportunity, accountability, experience and systems. Here's my struggle, Anthony. Everybody will say that they have experience and systems. I don't think there's a team or a brokerage in the land that's like, hey, we're pretty freaking terrible at teaching people how to do this and our systems suck. Even though it might be true, nobody says it.
The moment I typed it, I knew it wasn't any good.
That brings community, energy, diversity. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're talking about the solution. What I asked for is, what are the problems that exist that joining your team would solve? See, Katie, you say that you provide accountability, training, and mentorship. What is the problem that exists because people don't have accountability, training, and mentorship? So no production is the output. It's not the problem. Training towards better conversation, for sure, that's what you want to be able to give people. It's not the problem.
With the problem for accountability not being able to hold themselves accountable, like as an individual?
Yeah, so if they're not being able to hold themselves accountable, how are they feeling?
Stuck, depressed.
Stuck, depressed, lost, isolated, confused, lonely. These are the problems that exist, right? So what do you get found talking about? Like, if you care about accountability, training, development, support, community, etc., what you actually have to care about publicly is the problem that exists because they don't have those things. People talk about what's required is an elevator pitch. I'd rather you focused on an elevator rant. I'd like want you all to be so frustrated about the fact that it's a tragedy that thousands of really talented, committed people are leaving the industry because they feel lonely, because they feel isolated, because they don't get the right training. because they don't feel like they have enough support, because they're not getting the right guidance, because they're being told that they're trained enough to be ready, but in truth, they're not trained enough to be ready. If you care about the problem, people will trust you with the solution. If you try and sell people on your solution, they'll look to explain they don't have the problem. That's what I mean by authenticity. Don't care about the quality of your service. Care enough about the problem that your service overcomes. Now you can talk for days. Instead of saying, I've got the answer, I've got the answer, I've got the answer, say this problem matters. And it matters for real. So people see themselves in the problem. See what now happens? If you know you're missing people, when you know what problems are relevant towards them, you can angrily rant about that. It's attractive. You know, it's a tragedy right now that so many talented, experienced agents are being stuck doing administration, teaching brand new agents how to do basics because they don't have the right infrastructure for growth in their organization. So what they're actually now doing is that they are becoming an executive operations assistant inside a small team, when what they really should be doing is maximizing the key earning years of their life.
So Phil, would you say that for individuals like myself who end up making a decent amount of content, I probably, reflecting on this, make a lot of content offering solutions and not enough content around evangelizing the issues?
Correct. But what you do, Joe, is you make good content that is in support of other agents about the buyer and seller problems. And I know you actively do that on purpose. It's doing the same thing, but to an agent point of view. Recognize the puzzles that exist within agents. What you'll now do is create shareable content because it's authentic, right? Is you are authentically caring about a problem that exists in the agent community at large. How many agents are going to see themselves in that content? But I would need to position this like it's a travesty. Like, you're mad at this. That's what authentically caring about this is. Like, I authentically give a damn about how sales has such a bad name and how people think that salespeople are pushy, obnoxious, arrogant, etc. When the best of the salespeople that we've all done business with are none of those things.
Well, and it seems like somebody who does this really well is like Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yep.
Like whenever you see a Gary V video, he's very almost brash with people about their own problem. He'll rip somebody apart right in front of them. And it is like relatable because you're like, he's going straight to the problem. And people will offer kind of BS solutions. He's like, yeah, that's bullcrap. You know, and like he just rips right through it. And it does, he does almost come off mad sometimes about it, but it's very authentic.
And I think, you can talk towards the fact that, every brokerage says that they offer training, but what they're really offering is they're offering support and encouragement for you to put more work in and more effort. Yet nobody really has the ability to teach modern agents the skills they need to be able to navigate a complex market right now. So what's happening is hundreds of agents are hammering the phones, making calls, further damaging the reputation of the industry as a whole because they're not skilled to have the empathetic relationships that are required with consumers about buying and selling homes right now. And you're mad at the fact that what they're doing is that they are not necessarily representing professional realtors correctly. If you show you care about the problem that exists, people will trust you with a solution. So I'm hoping what's starting to form is a little bit of a to-do list that you feel ownership for without me needing to be able to prescribe a full to-do list. Look for your missing people by defining who they are. Find the 3 avatars that meet the missing people that you're looking to bring to your team. Start to craft the list of people that meet those descriptions that you can start to be more attractive towards. Grow your visibility around how your journey has started to be able to level up. Look at the missing pegs in your board from a credibility point of view, so you can start to say, how am I building my future bio so that I'm even more relevant to the future people I'm looking to attract? What am I authentically caring about that shows I care about the problems that my solution solves? I don't care about my solution. And only then do you get to availability. Because once you've got visibility, credibility, and authenticity, you can then say, here's how you get to flirt with me. That might be, here's a webinar you can learn more. Here's a team meeting that you can come and learn more. Why don't you join us at the next conference to come and take a look? Why don't you come to dinner to come meet 3 other people with the team? Like, that's where you start to say, what is the availability of next steps for people to be able to raise their hand and say, I'm kind of interested in learning more of what you're about. Because do you want people to sign up on first date? Or do you just want people to come openly and say, what's all this about? How can it work for me? What you then strategically look towards is, what are your multiple different doors that open that are available for people to walk through, so they know how they can professionally flirt with you to find out whether this is a good fit. And that could be 30-minute discovery calls on your website with a Calendly link for people to find out more. It could be a name, address, email for a pre-recorded webinar. It could be, send me a text directly for us to be able to start a meaningful conversation on this number. You could decide all your different call to actions, but decide them on purpose. Because guess what? You know who your missing people are, and you know what the most preferred way is for them to be able to do business with you. Is an experienced, heavy-hitting producer likely to show up to an open enrollment webinar with lots of other people at a predetermined time? Less likely than being able to shoot you a text on your personal phone. So when you know you're missing people, you can design your call to actions that are more appropriate, that show that you recognize the way that that kind of person might prefer to find out how they can do more business with you. Making sense? This is all background work. I'm going to introduce one more piece of content before we catch a beat. And once you know who your missing people are, you can think about approaching them either from a sort of hunting point of view or a farming point of view, right? This is often what's talked about. Like, are we going to sniper go hunt these people down and be that aggressive, bullish salesperson that says, I want you? Or are we going to just keep farming out there and hope that our attraction strategy is going to result in them knocking on our door? Those are what are often seen as the only 2 choices. There's a third choice, though, that sits in the middle of those 2, which has been my preferred method of business development for over 20 years of my career, which is what I've learned to call fishing, which is something between those 2. Like, if I know who the people are that I'm looking to attract and do business with, I can dangle the right bait in front of them. I can find out where they hang out. I can put the bait in front of their nose in a situation where they're highly likely to be. And guess what? I got more chance of catching the fish. When I look at the numbers that you laid down of how many people you want to bring to your team, these aren't tens of thousands of people. They're tens of people. You find out where they hang out, you can then drop the bait down in front of them. Here are 3 pieces of bait that will almost certainly provide you a meaningful conversation with just about anybody to allow you to start to nurture relationships. One is a sincere compliment. 2 is genuine recognition. And 3 is the request of an opinion. So you got compliment, recognition, and opinion. Those 3 things. So you've identified your missing people. You've got them on a list. You've been building your visibility and your credibility and your authenticity. You're well positioned. You're highly attractive. You've got your availability next steps. You now want to go knock on a door of somebody you definitely want to be in your team. First thing to think about is compliment, recognition, or opinion. Who wants to tell me the difference between a compliment and recognition? What's the difference between those 2 things?
I would almost, my ideas, I'd love to hear others. I would think a compliment is something that you see in someone's ability to do, and a recognition is highlighting something they have done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd take that. And compliment is something personable. I think recognition should be personal as well. Recognition is based on work, potentially. Recognition is an acknowledgement of their body of work. There's truth in all of this.
I feel like compliment is more active and current, and recognition's maybe in the past, something that's kind of already happened.
Could be those things for sure. Could be all of that. Recognition almost always includes gratitude. So recognition is specific gratitude. Whereas a compliment is just a gift. A compliment is, I see you and you're awesome. Not necessarily any gratification in that, just a gift. Just witnessing something and being able to share it. So let's play on this a second, right? Let's say this is one of your missing people. You'd love to do business with them. You'd love to bring them in your team. What could be an example of something you could compliment that would get you attention and start you a conversation?
Difficult deal, they closed a body of work from years past that has been impressive.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if a compliment is, Anthony, I really love, I feel like you have the ability to connect with people at a really high level. So that where a recognition would be, Anthony, it seems like you're the type of guy that throughout the years has been able to, I don't know, maybe that's splitting hairs. But.
And there is a line between these two things, but what we should be able to look at sometimes is how can we do 1-2 punch on this? Anthony, I love the way that you're so open to be able to engage and work with other agents, regardless of who they be able to broker with, and you care passionately about, right? Hang on, that should not be being. Go away. Look at that. Phone calls coming in the middle of a Zoom call. Do not disturb. I'm back. So Anthony, I think you'd be looking to say, how do you bring multiple versions of this? Sometimes you can combine compliment and recognition. But what it should well be also is, are you following the people that you'd like to better do business with? And are you liking their posts, commenting on their posts, and showing some interest in what matters towards them? That's simple compliment or recognition, correct? Simple compliment or recognition could be sliding into somebody's DMs and saying, look, I've recognized how much that you've dialed up the way that you're showcasing your reels on Instagram. I just wanted to say, great job. I don't know whether, you found new people or you've learned new skills, but I can tell you from the outside looking in, seems like you're really doing something and committing to being able to serve your clients at a higher level. Anything you deliver that way around, as long as it's authentic, how can somebody ignore it? It's almost impossible or rude to not reply positively.
Phil, you got me thinking about what you talked about earlier, knowing who it is that we want to go after, right? For me, some of the people that I want to go after are people that are bettering our profession.
Great.
I want to be around those people. And when you talk about recognition, including gratitude, when I talk to those people, I don't express, I recognize what they're doing, but I don't express my own personal gratitude for them doing it.
Look at what you can do to elevate that even further. Here are 7 people you need to follow if you want to be able to have a more successful career in real estate. Right? See how that content shows recognition. Write a blog article about it, produce a white paper, showcase the people that are doing things. when people have made contributions to your National Association events, or that they are showing up in support of other parts of the industry that are seen to be rising other agents up, if they're demonstrating the kind of values that are important to them, catch people demonstrating the values that are important to the type of people that you're looking to bring in your team. And when you see it and you catch it, don't let it go unspoken. Be the champion and supporter of other people who are demonstrating the kind of behaviors that you'd like to see more of.
Question for you, Phil.
Yeah.
What does a segue look like post recognition or compliment? So they acknowledge it, they're grateful, you get a positive response. What's the segue from that moving forward? Because I find it's very easy for people to just say, "Oh, thanks, that's awesome, hope you're doing well," and then that's kind of the end of it. What's the transition or phase 2 of that, I guess?
It's a great question, and we'll get to that.
I figured. All right.
I tell you what it's definitely not, though, which is what most people do, is they jump straight to something inappropriate. It's like saying, hey, like, I love everything you're doing, and dang, that dress looks good. And they're like, oh, thank you. And you're like, well, what are you doing tonight? It's too much too soon, right? Like, that's what happens in most recruiting conversations, is we pay some form of compliment. We engage in some form of conversation that has them say that in some way they're interested and they don't dislike you. You're saying, well, we should catch up sometime because I really think we should do some business together. And what do you know about real? And it's like, okay, friction, that was loaded. The compliment and recognition was loaded. It was done with a short-term selfish agenda. Therefore, it lost sincerity, it lost genuineness. And now all of a sudden you've devalued that relationship when your goal was to be able to amplify it. Slow the process down, speed the outcome up. And what you're looking for is you're looking for them to chase you a little. Because note again, right? If somebody's making a decision that they're going to look for an alternative brokerage, do they want the one that is desperately hammering on the door, or do they want to feel like they're in control of that decision? When it comes to decision making, there are 3 things that people want to feel. They want to feel smart, they want to feel capable, and they want to feel good. Nothing more than those 3 things. What do I mean by smart? They want to feel like they've got enough information to make this decision. They're well informed enough to make this decision. They've got enough data to support this decision. Capable is, I can make this decision. I can make it all by myself. I don't need anybody to force me to do it. And good means that I have enough confidence that I'm not going to feel buyer's remorse. That's all that good means. Not, this is going to be the most exciting or fascinating decision in my life. It's, I'm not going to feel buyer's remorse. Just good. Not great or awesome, just good. Think about that even from a seller right now. Seller's concerned about selling their house. They've got a 2.5% interest rate, but the house that they're living in, they hate. It's too small. It's too far from work. That their life is a disaster because. Well, smart could be, well, I'm in a position that I can afford to sell, even if I sell at a loss. The time that I'll save from being able to move closer to work and the space that we're going to achieve as a family is going to make all the sense in the world, and the feeling is going to be because of that. And I can afford the higher payment because my salary is doing this and I can afford it right now. Capable is, well, I've got the means to be able to do it. Nobody's forcing me to do it. Good is, at the end of it, my Mondays to Fridays are going to be significantly better. I'm good with it. Okay, financially on paper, not the smartest thing to do. But for me in my unique circumstances, smartest thing to do. Catch that from a recruiting point of view too. They just want to feel smart. They want to feel capable. They want to feel good. So allow that to mature a touch over time. All that your recognition and the compliment's going to do is it's going to grow your equity in their relationship. They're going to think higher of you, which means they're going to look at you more. Now your visibility, credibility, and authenticity is more focused on their radar. Now what they're going to do is watch you like a hawk for weeks and months at an end, going, dang, she looks like she's having more fun over there than I'm having. Why didn't I get invited to that party? I mean, dang, they look like cool people to hang out with. See how all this evidence now building into the decision-making process is adding smartness to it, adding data to it. It's time on purpose with new evidence that is riding in. Because as much as people are looking for alternative brokerages and teams to move to right now, they're also scared. Scared of making the wrong decision. But note what they're looking to be able to do is to not make the wrong decision. They're not trying to make the right decision. They're trying to not make the wrong decision. So that's a big difference, right? If I'm trying to make the right decision, I can be a touch more gung-ho. I can be a touch more maverick about it. I can, decide that if this doesn't work out, I'll move again. I'll move again. In a market like this, I'm happy to make a move once, but I don't want to make a move twice. I want to definitely not make the wrong decision. So we've got recognition, we've got compliment, we've also got opinion. So Riley, if I come back to a question that you made earlier, which is how do you look to be able to build a conversation from there? Compliment or recognition is something you give to them, right? That gains a response. Move two in the chess game could be the request for an opinion around something. Hey, what's your opinion on all the agents that are leaving the business right now? What's your opinion on what's going to be happening with interest rates? Hey, what's your opinion on things like coaching and training and development to win in the world of real estate? What do we now just get? Much bigger, much curious, much more contextual conversation. Two peers just having a conversation about the world that we all operate in. Ask those kind of questions with genuine curiosity. Now what we're starting to be able to do is develop a relationship. We haven't talked about anything that is the complexities of getting people to be able to actually pull the trigger and to make a decision to be able to join your brokerage. But has this been helpful so far? Just looking at how you can be more strategically and tactically proficient at getting prepared to be able to win from an agent attraction point of view. Because Joe, we talked none of this last year.
Yeah, no, what I love so much about what you do, Phil, is you're very much a teach people to fish guy. Like, here's some principles. Anthony, some of the messaging around how you may create it versus Jenny versus Julio, versus Ellen. Like it may be different, but here are the principles that everybody should be gravitational toward. And that's what I love, rather than just saying like, hey, here's a quick script. It's like, here are some principles that you should be considering. And that's just what I'm obsessed with this stuff about, because the principles should govern, not the tactics.
Mm-hmm. And look at this again. If you've got your missing people list and you know who the people you're looking for, and you find yourself a spare hour and you think compliment, recognition, opinion, could you look at every person on your list and see, like, how do I just nudge one of those three buttons with the people that I'm looking to have more attention towards us? Chances are the answer is yes. And I think too many people look at agent attraction to go from, I can get somebody from they're slightly unhappy with their existing team to sign up with me on Friday. I think our belief that that's too big of an ask is helpful. Actually, let's consider it as smaller bite-sized chunks. Let's consider it might take somebody 12 weeks, 24 weeks to make an informed decision. But what you want is a committed agent, right? You want somebody who comes across and is all in, not somebody that is pulling the ripcord on their existing team to find the easy button in yours, and they're not ready to hit the ground running. Here's what I'm intrigued to understand at this point of our time together is, what is something you might do differently? What is something you're going to act upon? And just either raise your hand, punch it in the chat, or open your microphone up. There's a few of us here. That means that I'm pretty sure you can bring your voice in. I'd love to know what you're going to act upon. What are you going to do differently from the time we spent together so far?
I think one of the things immediately, our avatar right now is team leads specifically to obviously help them, traverse the path that we've kind of already been on. So again, getting super clear on who those team leads are and who we want to attract. And then I think I'm definitely more of the hunter, like pick up the phone and fairly aggressive as far as like having the conversation, booking the appointment, which has served so far, but I think at scale it doesn't make sense. So I think, yeah, using the compliments and the recognition, and then just building the relationship with the team lead over a long period of time is going to be a lot easier. It'll take longer, but it's going to be a lot more effective. So that was very helpful already.
If you're bullish around that as well, Riley, is you could look at the team leaders that you want to do business with, take that whole pillar of opinion, and decide that what you're doing is you're producing an article, or you're producing a podcast series, or you're producing a white paper about the challenges of running a team in a modern marketplace, and you wanted to interview a number of existing team leaders in your locality or across the nation to find out what's real for them. The minute you put constraints around it and say that this is a formal interview, watch how easy you can get 15 minutes of somebody's time and they'll tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to bring them straight to a meeting, like, come to a meeting to learn about our team and our brokerage. No, thank you. Show up on Zoom for 30 minutes for me to talk about your attributes and skills as a team leader and what's happening in the marketplace for the white paper I'm writing for the industry or for my podcast. They're like, I'm coming.
I think that could be replicated on like a YouTube platform anyway. You know, you're interviewing team leads to hear their pain points and what's going on in their market, and what a great way to build the relationship and have a bank of that over time, right?
Correct. YouTube series, YouTube short series, podcast, white paper, blog article. You know, you're working on a book. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's true. You can't use a ruse to get somebody to show up and give you time and their input and their expertise if you're not committed to actually produce the final product. But I think providing you can create a final product that is valuable. I mean, the number of times that I've got meetings with top leaders in big companies that wouldn't have given me the time of day because I said I wanted to interview them for a book. Straight past a gatekeeper, straight onto schedule.
Yeah.
No better way of me getting time on CEO's schedule than telling them I want to interview them for their expertise to go into my next book. You could all do the same, whether it's a book or any other body of work that you're creating to demonstrate expertise or content. What else are we going to do differently?
I, for one, am going to start making some stark raving mad content, and I count on Katie Day and my guy Matty Ice to do the exact same. Like, I just need to hit. I think so much of the messages I craft around a solution, and I think I just need to be more honest about some of the issues I see, and so I'm excited to create some content that's a little bit more hitting to the heart of what agents are facing right now, like the actual problems we're dealing with.
And Joe, I think you can hit some real tough spots about people's relationship difficulties that are being challenged and people's parenting issues that are being challenged because they don't have the right resource in place. And the content junkies that are existing within the world of real estate that think that the next conference, the next course, the next thing that they go to, and what they're really doing is running around for tax deductible distractions. Right? Is this
justifying to a spouse or a significant other that they're busy, when in reality they're just hanging out at the pool with the Cosmo while the conference is happening.
Right. But I think like calling all the bullshit is what the industry needs right now. And I think those kind of things of being aware of the problems where like then somebody says, that's the kind of accountability I need. I do need to be a better husband. I do need to be a better parent. I do need to show up and put more time and dedicated effort into my business. How do I do that? I need a leader like that can hold me accountable. What else? John says define missing people, but go on, Jenny.
I was going to say, define the missing people, have that list. Don't just be out there trying to catch, a trout in the middle of the ocean. You got to find the pond that you want to fish in to get the fish that you want out of the right pond.
Right. What you can then do is you can ask more who do you know questions.
Yep.
Who do you know that's in their fourth year of real estate that's been really busy on the buy side that's looking to secure their first few listings?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now if you've got expertise that you could work with a listing partner as part of your team setup, is like, oh, you've got an in, you've got an angle. Now, who do you know that's busy on the buy side that has complained about the fact that all of their weekends are spent at open houses without the right level of support? Now, all of a sudden, you're getting referrals volunteered, or even those people themselves are saying, well, that's me. Oh, really? Once you know you're missing people, you can define your missing person to the person that you'd like to be able to do business with, and they see themselves in the description. And then curiosity gap kicks in. They're like, well, what do you do to help people like that? You're like, why do you ask? You're like, well, because that's me. Oh, really? Funny how that happened. What else are we seeing here in the chat? John's going to define his missing people. Katie, how are you going to do less farming and more fishing?
I think that as far as both for the team and for the brokerage, a lot of my attraction has been just whoever comes to me, right? And so, you know, when you were saying like the framework around like fishing and, you know, having that list and cultivating that, that's not really something that I've done in the past. So I need to put more time and thought into that.
I have a process around prospecting that I found to be very successful in every industry I've ever worked in, and I've worked in over 800 different industries. And I write about it in exactly how to sell. We talk about it in how to persuade and get paid, but many people in the world of real estate haven't come across a process that I talk about called being devilishly productive. Now, there's a certain number of prospects that any one person can actually work. Mistake that many people do is that they fail to define the difference between a leads list and a prospect list. And we need an abundance of leads, but prospects are the people we choose. These are our missing people. The maximum number of people that I found that any one person can have on a prospect list is 18 people. A human being cannot hold enough capacity of knowledge and emotional intelligence about more than 18 people at any one period of time, that you know enough about them on an emotional level. Like you might have, 1,000 leads in a database, but you can't hold more than 18 prospects. If you want to be devilishly productive, I encourage people to always be working 18 prospects. Have 6 that meet one description, 6 that meet another description, and 6 that meet the next description. So if this is the missing people we talked about earlier, is like 6 low-hanging fruit that you can transact upon fairly quickly. If we take this from an agent attraction point of view, this might be the 2-year established agent that joined the most convenient team that they could at the time to be able to find their first fit into real estate and realize that they're not getting the support they need. The next 6 is your core avatar, or your sweet spot. This is the you 2 years ago type avatar. And then the third group of 6 is your big fish. It's you being brave and hungry enough to be able to shoot for the thing that is going to be life-changing. All 3 of those different groups often have a different pipeline turnaround time, right? The low-hanging fruit you might meet on a Monday, and they make a decision by the following Monday that they're on board. Your core might take a little longer to nurture, and your big fish, crikey, that might take a lot longer still. Sales pipeline is going to be a lot more significant on that. So whatever you're in the business for fishing for, to be devilishly productive, have 6 in one group, 6 in another group, and 6 in the next. That's why I call it devilishly productive. It's the 666 thing.
So, Philly, this may be so for Heather Cook or Katie or myself that have been in this game for a while, or some of you who are getting more serious about agent attraction, this may be where some fatigue comes from, because we treat this hundreds of people's like leads that may come to us in Katie's example of farming, and we think of them all as prospects. And then it becomes just very tiresome when you're trying to treat everyone as if they're a prospect. And I love that defining the two. And it almost gives you, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but that ability to even to some degree take some leads and go like, this person's worthy of now becoming a prospect.
That's right. And you should always be working 18. if I was a sales coach to any of you in this group, I'd say, tell me about your Magic 18 and walk me through your next play. That would be the only conversation I'd have. Talk to me about your Magic 18 and explain to me what your next play is. And your next play might be, well, I'm following their social, and what I'm doing is I'm liking and commenting on what they're about, and I'm hoping that what they do at some point in the next 7 days is start a conversation with me. I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. But if you haven't got a next play, they shouldn't be on your prospect list. So what do I then say is, well, are you going to define a next play, or do you need to take them off your prospect list and bring somebody else into play? When somebody then signs up, happy days. Who are you bringing into play? And you're always working 18. Now, if you've got a bigger leads list, you can keep pulling people off the bench, subbing people out when they're no fun to be able to work with. But if you are actively working 18 prospects at all times, you will like blow up the size of your team. Instead, what we do is we mediocrely communicate to hundreds or thousands of people and then call it success when 1% decide to raise their hand and say, tell me more. What we are dealing with right now in the market is there is a scarcity of customer base, and everybody plays like there's infinite opportunity. There isn't. There's finite. There are only a certain number of people that meet these missing person descriptions. There's more than enough, but there's not like more and more people. It's even like when people try to explain to me how many followers they have on Instagram, they're like, or on social, they're like, I got 30,000 on Instagram, and I got 25,000 on LinkedIn, and I've got 20,000 on X, etc., and 20,000 on Facebook, and they add it all together, and they've got, I got 100,000 plus people that are following me. I'm like, no, you don't. Many of those are the same people. You can't count them twice or 3 times or 4 times. Same exists from our prospects here from an agent attraction point of view. There is a finite number of people that you can do business with. And failing to communicate with them right ends up with you bruising prospects. And when you bruise them, it takes a long time for those bruises to repair, which means that what can easily happen is they do nothing for another 5 years. They still decide to leave and change teams, but 5 years on from now, they actually go and join a completely different team than yours. Because what you did is create an opportunity, you then bruised them. They then became paralyzed for a period of time. And then when their confidence came back to be able to make a change, they changed to somebody else because they wanted to save the embarrassment of coming back and saying, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. So they'll do it where they can save face somewhere else. What questions do you have for me at this point in our time together?
Bill, like Katie, I've only really had conversations with people that have come to me. This conversation has got me thinking a lot more about what I need to say to people that come to me that don't fit the avatars that I'm about to create. Talk to me about how I escape from that conversation.
Well, do you have to escape?
I guess I don't have to escape, but
let's look at it this way, right? If you're on a fishing boat and you're fishing for tuna and you catch something different, how do you feel?
I still got a fish.
Right. So it might still be absolutely okay. But if you catch a vicious, poisonous piranha, you might decide to cut the line and not bring that thing on the boat. You get to be able to make.
So it's almost as if. So it's almost as if, Phil, what you're talking about is the difference between proactive activities and reactive production.
Correct. And also give yourself permission to aim for something, shoot for something, and still miss. Like, think about the game of darts. The maximum score you can get with 3 darts is 180, right? You look at treble 20, you aim and you shoot, and chances are you're not going to hit treble 20. You have another go with a second dart, and if you're anything like me, you shoot again, and you still don't hit treble 20. And with your third dart, again, you achieve the same kind of result. But what would have happened if I didn't aim at treble 20? could have hit the barmaid, could have hit the ceiling, could have hit the floor. But what happened is every time I aimed at treble 20, I still contributed towards my score. And if I did it all day, every day, and made it my profession, chances are I'd get better and I'd spend more of my time in the zone where I wanted to be at. But don't worry that your focus in one area attracts you something else if you're still happy to catch that something else. Don't be like, just because I was aiming at something, you can't get a seat on the bus, unless you're like, definitely not you. And then you can just say things like, it sounds like you've got too much work still to do at your existing team and your existing brokerage, and that, you know, your loyalty to them is worth respecting at this period of time. So as much as it's been great talking to you, I don't think that we have the right resources to support where you're at this stage in your career. And it sounds like that you might be opening a new chapter at your existing team or brokerage, but you're not opening a new book at this time. And then you bless release with kindness and let them go about their merry business, being a pain in the ass for somebody else and not with you. And you're right there, John, as well, is right. There could be somebody else that would be a better fit for them, even within your community, within your network, within your brokerages. You could be like, with everything you've said that you need right now to succeed in your career is, I believe that's all important, but personally, the infrastructure we have here in Tampa isn't necessarily going to provide you the resources you need. But please know that John Denny has a great team that has more of those infrastructures in place. Would it help if I introduce you to him? And that might be a more meaningful next step. And I think it helps sometimes for you to be able to say, it's not me, but I know who I can introduce you to that might be a good next step. Like, if you're the answer to every problem, then you've got an identity crisis. Ryan's talking about liking to be intentional. And remember, on this recruitment piece is, you got to hang out with these people, at least for a period of time, right? At least try to like them. What else have we got questions before we take a quick comfort break?
What advice, Phil, would you have to somebody if their bio isn't necessarily something that even impresses them, let alone others? Like, I think you talked about the aspirational piece of setting some goals for yourself to achieve.
Right.
Is it, I mean,
what could be an example of an unimpressive bio?
Well, so we're in a production-based business, right? So if somebody has been in the business a long time but isn't currently doing a lot of production, you know, maybe they've practiced an antiquated business model, is trying to start a team but doesn't exactly have a track record of building teams. You know, it's just like they've been around a long time but haven't really achieved much, but they're trying to achieve through building, you know. I'm just thinking an avatar may be a solo who is burnt out, not really doing a lot of business, but it's like, now I want to leverage that into more of a team building situation.
Yeah. I think they have to be aware of their limitations of the kind of team that they can build. Right? If you are a budding musician, but you're not that good and you want to start a band, you've got to give consideration to the level of talent you might be able to get to come and jam with music with you. So I would be looking to say, well, actually, I can't be the leader and the preacher that is here to be able to train people's success. But what I can do is I can build a bio of credibility that talks about my hunger and passion to build a squad of people that equally feel similar to who I am, that want to go and hustle and grow together. Or actually, this is a group of people all in the same boat that says, if you feel anything like I do, why don't we do this thing together? Instead of having to show up to a team where you're being looked down to, why don't we create a team of less experienced people? Why don't we create a team of people that are all at the bottom together, knowing that together is better than alone? And what's nice about being part of the infrastructure is that we still get the inspiration and aspiration from national conferences and from our ongoing training. But wouldn't it be great that if we can all feel like we've got a new start line together? And I'll be building this into my bio.
So maybe
Licensed as a real estate agent for 9 years, and in that 9 years, I've failed consistently to be able to maximize both potential.
So calling it aspirational honesty. Like, I've got these great aspirations, and the reality is I haven't yet fulfilled them, but I believe that together we could.
Correct. And have other people maybe finding that collective mediocrity is a place they're happy to hang out. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Look at how people that have enjoyed playing sports to a certain level and then decided they wanted to drop out of the game because now all of a sudden they realize they weren't quite good enough. They don't play the game for 2-3 years. And then what they want to be able to do is just to get back and play for fun. They want to be surrounded by people that just want to play for fun. They don't want to feel the same level of competitive pressure to be able to be all things to all people. But they have to realize that in order to be able to hit their big numbers, they might need tens of people in their team to create the same level of production than one of you might need to get, you can get from 3 or 4 people. If you want to do 1,000 transactions, you can find 1,000 people that do 1 transaction each, or you can find 100 people that do 10 transactions each, or you can find 10 people that do 100 transactions each, or one monster that does 1,000. So it's realizing that you're choosing a type of game and then setting your stall out with what's available to be able to support those people. So what might be in your availability if you're that hungry, less than competent agent still looking to recruit? Like, we do door knocking events together. So you're not having to do some of the activity that's required to be able to drive growth. We meet on Thursday mornings to call prospects and FISBOs and expireds and, the ugly work that when people don't have big books of business that they might have to do. Part of the value proposition might be into your bio is that we provide an environment to be able to do these things together so the ugly work isn't done alone. The key thing about a good bio and a good credibility statement is it wants to be well-polished version of the truth. So polish the truth best you can, no lies. And then people can feel confident and strong about that's who they are. And if other people are attracted to that, great. And if other people are like, that's not for me, then that's great too. And big businesses, Ginny, are built on collective mediocrity. Some of the biggest businesses on the planet, mediocrity at scale. Okay, well, why don't we grab maybe just 10 minutes to stretch legs and grab some caffeine if that's required, empty bladders, do those kind of things. Help me understand this as we just come back from a break. Hit me in the chat. Is this useful? Is this practical? Is this worth your time so far? Yes, no? Thank you. Thank you. This helps me feel less like a crazy person speaking at a webcam.
Hey, Phil, I have a question.
Go for it, Chris.
So I feel like I'm okay building relationships with these agents. And what would your advice be on the next step as far as not selling them? Because I came from EXP. I feel like there was a lot of sell, recruit. And I'm trying not to be that, we're here in Oklahoma where there's a big presence. And so I think we've gotten the name, we've tried to not tarnish the name of Real. So we're not there just straight, just recruit. What would your advice be when these relationships are built? What would the next step be, you think, in the process of building more of that rapport or
Mm-hmm. Well, this is exactly what we are looking to be able to talk about next. So we'll jump on that, Chris.
Boom.
I want to know from anybody else as well is what do you need to get from maybe this next hour or so that we're all together? What is something that you definitely want to be able to leave this conversation knowing that this is worthwhile? So Chris has kind of given me the, so then what? We built relationships. How do we take it forward from there? What else do we want to get from our time together here today?
So far, you're pretty much laying out the framework of how you should go about it before you go, and what it actually looks like in actual scenarios.
Okay. So you're looking to say, like, what happens when the rubber hits the road and you're actually in conversations from that point?
Yes.
Okay.
I think too, after a conversation, what that looks like as far as continuing to have conversations.
Okay. So the whole, how do you stay in the game? How do you stay in the conversation? You've had pleasant, meaningful levels of interest, but so now what? How do you keep it warm from there?
And it might have been said, but I know one thing that was very helpful for me was last year we had a conversation at Tom Ferry in like the lunch where you went over like kind of some of the questions to ask. And we wrote all that down for our team and recruiting to our team. And like I've used a lot of those questions and some of that framework for people that are looking to join the brokerage, as far as, you know, like what they don't like, what's stopping them from making the move and all that. So
very good. We can get into more of that. And Amy, tell me some more about what you have here as well. I see this in the chat, but just expand on that for me.
Just that I'm just interested in just bringing people over to Real in general. I don't have a team. Just from simply the rev share standpoint. So I'm sharing a little bit on social, and I think for me, I'm just afraid to be too, like you said, too out there in terms of being annoying about sharing about Real and not coming from a place of contribution or value to where they're, I'm just being all about commission, wanting their money instead of showing them all the value that Real has to bring. And so I'm trying to find that fine line in attracting people to want to come to our brokerage and not being annoying just about like some other brokerages can be.
Okay. And you're not looking to bring them into your team. You're just looking for them to make a decision to be able to perhaps switch away from something that's less advantageous to them, do it in your downline model.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So that's also more so to a number of solo agents as well as other teams, etc., but to have them in your rev share.
Right. Correct.
Got it. What else? What else? What else is front of mind?
I think it'd be like, obviously you've got the devilishly productive 666 framework as far as prospecting, which is excellent. I think even if you had some sort of cadence that could be done every single day to move the needle forward as far as agent attraction. So it's, every day you spend an hour and you send out 2 compliments, you do 2 of these, and then obviously it's probably ebbs and flows, but if there was some sort of cadence that you had suggestions on that someone could action every single day or 5 days a week or whatever it is, as far as what needle movers would look like using all of this framework, I think that would be super helpful and be, good takeaways for everybody.
Yeah, and I'll answer that quick as well, is think about those 3 different buckets of 6 in your prospecting, is to know that they all move at different paces. So your low-hanging fruit should be prospected with a lot more tenacity and there you might say, well, what I'm looking at is every single day, I'm looking for you to hit 6 people that are your prospects with a compliment, a recognition, some form of request of an opinion. Okay, well, your core business is once a week. I'm looking for you to hit those 6. And once every month, we're going to revisit everybody that's in your big fish to say, are you in control of the next action or should you be working something different? So what you've got is daily activity that should be churning, where people should be coming through it on the lower six. You've got weekly activity that's happening on the core business, and you've got monthly activity happening on the slower burn. And people are starting to think more realistically about pipeline management.
Makes sense. Okay.
That same process can be utilized on seller prospects. Is the six that you should be working with tenacity are maybe online leads. Same from a buyer point of view. It's you've got, and your core business is your past clients, and your aspirational might be a developer that you're looking to be able to harness a bigger relationship with. So at any point in your business, you can use the same 666 framework: low hanging fruit, daily activity; core business, minimum weekly activity; big fish, minimum monthly activity. And now what they're doing is they're looking after next year's business today as well. And I think that's the mistake that many agents have, is that they can only see 4 weeks ahead of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to raise their gaze up a little and start be thinking about how that same process applies in other areas of their business as well. So in our world at Exactly What to Say, we have our 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. And the first is one that often I joke about in my keynote presentations, which is that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. It's said from stage like it's a joke, but I promise you it's not a joke. It's said remarkably seriously. How many times have we come away from conversations thinking shoulda, woulda, coulda? How many times have we come away from a conversation thinking, why on earth did I say that? Or who on earth was that idiot, with the person you were talking about being yourself? Chris, you're even bringing up earlier on is like, great, I can do the relationship piece, but then I get to this piece and I find myself lost for words. Yet we know we're going to be in these situations. Wouldn't it make sense that we are more ready for these? This means that we need to identify what our critical conversations are. Chris, you've already identified an example of a critical conversation in a recruiting piece is that micro moment, right? Where we've gone from building rapport and everybody's happy to how do you then create genuine opportunity? How do you move this from we know, like, and trust each other to is there an opportunity here in this conversation to be able to move things forward? Where are the other critical conversations in the recruitment story, right? Chris, you're talking about the pivot point, right? Is how do you start to be able to move this towards some form of detailed discussion and qualification? What are the other points that are paramount if we're going to get people towards a decision? Katie Day mentioned one. It's like, okay, we've had a good conversation, everything went well, but we're not ready to be able to make a big decision on that day. How do you stay in the game? That's another critical conversation, right? Is setting up what happens next. Where else are there micro moments within the agent attraction piece that we should be looking to get focused on?
So whenever I teach this from stage, Phil, and I don't even know that you've seen me do this, my hack is I never take a meeting that I don't know the subject before I head into the meeting, like, period. And so if I was in an agent attraction conversation, before I ever entered into it, I would try to gather as much information about that individual or their hopes or desires or the situation they're in before I ever take the meeting in the first place, because I may frame an entire conversation incorrectly if I haven't done the work before the work to even understand who this person is or what they're looking to do. And so in my career, I've taken so many ill-prepared conversations, like so many ill-prepared meetings, and wasted so much time and probably blown opportunities, because historically when I get into an uncomfortable situation, I talk, but I'm learning to intuitively do more question asking and listening, but it all starts with being prepared before I ever head into the meeting.
Yeah. And we've touched on all of that preparation points. What I'm still trying to find is where are the moments of influence that we know are going to show up that are predictable, almost where a specific dance step is required. So Austin,
well, you're going to commission splits are going to be a thing.
Okay.
There are going to be some commission split. Time in office requirements is one of the things that agents are always like, well, can I just make 100% commission working from home with no actual accountability? I'll take that. So It's like, how much time are we going to ask of them? What's their commission split? And Like, what does the accountability metrics look like, or some of the key conversation?
Okay. And these are all outcomes again. What you're actually talking about is the how the money works conversation. And I think actually us putting a new label on that makes it easier to talk the bigger conversation. So they might want to talk commission splits. You want to talk about how the money works, because it's more than just commission splits. Instead, we say, well, it's more than just commission splits, and find ourselves on the back foot. See how we can control the narrative if what we are able to be able to do is to paint the picture that can't be compared apples for apples. If people are going to join your team, your brokerage, this isn't an apples for apples comparison. It's an apples for apple pie comparison. So we got to get them to realize that grandma's apple pie is the product of great apples plus skill and craft and care. That's what we want them to be able to see. So controlling the narrative around that conversation is important. I would argue that the critical conversation is the how the money works conversation, not the commission splits conversation. See if we can put our own labels on top. We can have more authority and more agency over how we control that narrative. There's another thing that we look at in this area of critical conversations, and the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it, which is known objections. Now, you've all seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, correct? And if you haven't seen the movie, there's a famous rap battle scene where the Eminem character is entering into a rap battle where he's concerned that he's going to get trash talked by Papa Duck about things that his mum got up to in the past and how he grew up and what his girlfriend got up to with who, etc. And he's so concerned about all this bad news coming about him, the only way he can control the situation is by bringing all this bad news out up front, creating mic drop moment, wins the rap battle. You are not in the business of rap battles, but you are in the business of controlling narrative. In every single one of your agent attraction conversations, particularly when you're at the point of interview with a potential agent or team lead, there are known objections you are walking into, correct? And then they appear in the conversation. You're like, I didn't see that coming. I'm like, how on earth did you not see it coming? Pretty darn obvious that they were going to have those kind of fears and reservations about what you're about. So what are the known objections? Because if an elephant is going to appear in the room, you need to be the one that puts the elephant in the room and then control the narrative around that elephant of how big the elephant is, how friendly the elephant is, and what the elephant's wearing. Don't allow it to show up from the other person. So hit me in the chat here. What are the known objections that come up? Commission splits is one. What else? Office environment, virtual model, no physical offices, fear around MLM. What are you going to offer me to make this decision? So what's the barefaced bribe that you're providing that was offered to me from Compass in the past? What else? How is this different to EXP? Why should you make money off of me? What's the exit plan? As in, sort of what's the longer term plan? You realize that every objection that you've brought to the table right now is about you. Is this brokerage model sustainable? Not one is about some of the biggest objections that exist in the mind of the person you're asking to make a decision. What are the biggest objections that are highly likely to be existing in the mind of the person you're looking to attract? What happens with my current business and past deals? Will you actually follow through and help me? Am I going to be successful here? How does this improve my life? What else? Will I be able to provide for my family if I make the switch and maintain? Yeah, these are all thoughts and reservations. Are you just saying this to get me to join? Do my goals and your goals align? Yeah, these are all known friction points. We're missing a big one. How do I leave my spouse? The biggest objection that exists in agent attraction isn't why should I join you? It's how do I elegantly leave an existing relationship that in most sets of circumstances hasn't done anything drastically wrong? How do I let go of an existing decision? How do I exit gracefully from an existing relationship? The mistake that many people make in conversations around agent attraction is we try and convince people they made a bad decision in the past. So what they should now do is choose you. When you try to convince people they made a bad decision in the past and they should now choose you, what you just trained them to believe is they are bad at decision making whilst trying to ask them to make a decision. Realize how much internal friction we create that way around? Our objective of any conversation around agent attraction is to help them realize whatever decision they made in the past was the right decision they made at the time. Only the time is now different. And that you always make the right decision based on what's right at the time. And because the time is different, you might need to make a different decision. If you have people fearful about their decision-making capabilities in a decision-making conversation, you just created indecision. So the biggest objection that needs to be dealt with in early conversations is they have to decide with certainty that their existing relationship brokerage team is not sufficient for the future. That is the first decision they need to make. They don't need 1,000 reasons to join you if they haven't got one good reason to leave. They need one good reason to leave before they're even open to consider why you. This is the biggest miss that happens in almost every agent attraction conversation, which is why you end up with people interested, but without intent. They're keen to understand and that they are spectators and observers and that they'd like to know more information and they'd like to flirt with the conversation, but they take no committed action because they don't know how to tell somebody else that they're not going to be working with them anymore. They don't know how to have that conversation with their spouse, with their family, with their existing team lead, with their existing agents, with their existing clients, with the homeowners that they're working for right now. And they never bring that up in the conversation. It just lives inside their head and inside their heart. We get good at helping people feel confident about that. You watch how much it then becomes downhill, the onboarding experience of them to be able to come on board and join you. So why don't we jam around how to be able to do this more effectively? Let's come back to Chris's point and say, great, we built rapport, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People are happy, we're in a meeting. Chris, what's the first thing you say to them right now? When you're looking to try and pivot that conversation towards a potential switch of teams or brokerages?
Basically ask them, how are they doing where their like current business is?
And what do they say?
Great.
So we just walked ourselves directly into a cul-de-sac.
Right.
Right. This is how predictable this can be. Is like, oh, dang, that's where I didn't want to be, but I asked a question to put me there. The genuine arc that you're looking for to have a meaningful agent attraction conversation is past, present, future. The miss that almost everybody has is that they forget the past piece. It's the safest place to be able to play to get additional context. So what I'm looking to be able to do after building rapport is to go back in time. Could be as simple as, so how long have you been involved in this world of real estate? Like, you want to get back to day one. And what do they now say, Chris? Let's stay in the same conversation. So how long have you've been involved in the world of real estate?
7 years.
Okay. And what made you decide that you wanted to be a real estate professional 7 years ago?
A recommendation from a friend.
Okay. So a friend of yours is decided to get you involved in the industry?
Yeah, they were in the industry, so they said they thought I'd be good at it.
Okay. Were they right?
Some days.
Okay. So a friend has suggested you should be involved in real estate. Like, what were your motivations to then be able to follow that compliment that they gave you? Why did you decide that you still wanted to do it?
Kind of controlling my own schedule, being able to build something bigger than I was at. So I was in the corporate world. So
okay, so time freedom and untapped earnings and the chance to be able to make big money and do more of the things that you want with your time.
Right.
Let's just hit pause for a second. How many people are going to give a version of that exact same answer? Someone like everybody who got involved in real estate, right? Somewhere like everybody. So Chris has just told me that that's what it is that he'd like to be able to do more of. And that's why he got involved in real estate. So I'm then going to say, well, how's that working out for you?
Great.
Really?
Yeah.
As good as it could be.
No, there's always room for improvement.
Okay. And you're at Remax right now?
Sure.
So how did you go about choosing to work with those guys?
My buddy worked there.
Okay. And you've been there that whole 7 years?
Yeah.
Okay. What 3 things do you like best about working with Remax?
The people in my office, my broker, national brand.
Okay. And if there was one thing you could change about them, what would the one thing be?
Make more money.
Okay. So you feel like you're kind of capped at an earnings point of view right now?
Yes.
And that you set out because you wanted more time freedom and more money?
Correct.
Do you see the folks at Remax changing things that would provide the opportunity for you to make more money?
No.
Okay. And how important is it to you that you do actually have an environment where more money is possible to you?
Very important.
Okay. But like on a scale of 1 to 10, with like 1 being it's a cute idea and 10 being you're fully committed to this, how important is it that you can make real money?
10.
Okay. And you're certain you can't do that at Remax?
No.
Okay. See where we're at? I've mentioned nothing about my brokerage or team. But I've helped Chris realize that he's done his shift at Remax if he's committed about making more money. I'd say, hey, Chris, before I tell you more about us and the kind of ways that we do things, is what's the extra money for? What do you need more money for?
I spend more time with my family, take my daughter on vacations, invest.
Okay. So how many vacations have you missed out on from being too busy, not making enough money?
Many.
Like 2? More than 2?
More than 2.
Okay. Well, how much longer do you plan on that being a reality?
Not very long.
Okay. But Remax have been good for you? They were the right decision at the time?
Yeah.
And the time is now a little different.
Definitely different.
Okay. So what do you understand about us and the way that we do things differently?
It sounds like you guys got good training, better splits, a lot of collaboration.
Okay. And what else?
That's all I know about it so far.
Gotcha. But you keen to understand more?
Sure.
Okay. Well, help me understand this is how helpful would it be to you if that you knew that you could be generating revenue, not just off your own production, but the production of others too?
Oh, that's important.
Okay. And How helpful would it be to you if you had access to a group of senior mentors that are making real money that could teach you more of the ways that you could grow your own personal production and your own personal wealth?
That'd be awesome.
Look what I'm doing, right? The whole thing here is in questions. There is nothing that me is leading the witness. I'm just curiously looking to try and find out, is Chris a fit for what we're about or not? What else
So
am I
Phil,
doing?
how much of what you do is so many interviews are they happen with you facing the person you're interviewing.
Yeah.
But how much of this is almost figuratively you sitting next to the person and looking at and painting a picture with them? Does that make sense? Like for me, it helps to say, it's not me and Chris going like this. It's Chris and I looking at this thing together.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about your past.
We're looking at the past. We're then looking at present. And now we're looking out to the future together. Because everybody says they want more money. Like if I don't say what's the money for, we got nothing to talk about. Well, how would you feel if another 12 months goes by and you can't afford a summer vacation to be able to take your kids somewhere meaningful?
Not very good.
Right. How confident are you in your existing relationship that you can achieve the time off and the money that you need?
Not very confident.
Okay. So you'd agree that something needs to change?
Yes.
See, there's another bounce point. What we're doing is we're opening boxes, closing boxes, opening boxes, closing boxes, opening boxes, closing boxes, building a case that then starts to build momentum. When I say, what do you know about us? Who then did the selling job on All Things Real? Chris did the work. Even when he gave a good answer, I still asked him what else. What I then did is I added some other benefits with a would it help if preface. Would it help if you knew you had this? Would it help if you knew you had that? Help me understand, would it help if? Yeah. Okay. Hey, before I explain more about us and the way we do things, is you think of any reasons why you wouldn't look to make a change?
I just really like my broker.
Yeah. Like really like?
Oh, she's a friend.
Okay. Like your best friend in the world?
She's a good friend.
Okay. She pay for your kids' vacations?
No.
Okay. What do you think she'll say when you share with her that you're maybe moving in a different direction?
That I'm making the wrong decision.
Okay. And what might be some of her arguments about why that would be the case?
That cloud brokerages are fly by night.
Really? And what do you believe about that?
I think innovation is important.
Okay. So how will you respond when she says that back to you?
I'll tell her it's time for me to explore my options.
Okay.
What's best for me and my family.
What else is important for you to say to her in that same conversation?
That I appreciate everything she's done for me.
Yeah. Please say thank you when you speak to her. What have we just done? Just train Chris how to leave. Got buy-in to the fact that he understands the pushback and the objection he's going to get when he goes back, so he doesn't have to live in fear of it. Like, I've got this. I've decided that this is what's right for me. I've decided this is what's right for my family. I've decided here's where I'm going. The decision is now not what's important. What's now important is movement and momentum. See, it sounds to me, Chris, like your mind is pretty much made up, is that you do want to make a change. You've probably got two questions in your mind right now. One is like, how exactly does this money really work? And then also, what's the game plan early days to mean that you are on a journey to be able to make more of that money and buy you back more of your time? Would I be right in saying that those are the two questions at the front of mind?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So firstly, let me explain how the money works. right? And now you've got permission to be able to walk that through. But you don't have to then like have a crescendo at the end of how the money works conversation. We've got permission to say, run straight on through. And now that you understand how the money works, the second part of that was for you to understand what happens next. So here's what happens next. And I just walk out what's going to happen over the next XYZ number of days. So here's what happens next is you right now have how many existing sellers that you're representing?
6.
Okay. Are you going to want those on your new deal or your old deal?
My new deal.
Okay. So I'm going to start to be able to map out like an understanding of the puzzle that currently exists, and we're going to make all the play-by-plays as to what's going to happen from here. And then I'm going to conclude this whole thing once you've got confidence around all of the next steps as to what's happening. And the final next step is that we do need your license to be in place under real, etc. And here's the administration that needs to happen around that. And what's the best email address for me to send that to? And when you share the email address, that means that you've just said yes to everything else that came prior. It isn't much harder than what we've just mapped out. But that's leadership in a conversation. What else is it? What else are we recognizing here as we jam this out? Yes, you can understand before being understood. And what else is empathetic, right? Is giving people time to explore all the possibilities before jumping to conclusions. Know the pain points and possible objections prior to being able to ask the questions. What else are we seeing? Giving the autonomy for them to make their own decisions. Letting them come to a decision by themselves. Even when you see they've come to a decision, don't cut and run. 2, 3, 4 more questions to get them from high levels of intent to certainty. Make Chris feel smart, capable, and good. Because I'm helping demonstrate that I know, the possible points of friction that could be existing in his own mind. I'm not forcing him to be able to do it. I mean, if Chris said there's no way that I can leave my existing broker, she's my wife's best friend, and like we have dinner every single Friday night, and the kids are best friends, and we vacation together, and like these things is just I wouldn't be able to do that to rock our family friendship unit, etc. We just found the real objection. So we can explore that with some tenure too, but you've got to get to truth. Also, how much patience exists? To do agent attraction properly, you have to detach yourself from the outcome. In the conversations you're having, your goal isn't to sell them on joining your brokerage. Your goal is to help them make the right decision for them. And you have to leave space for the fact that the right decision for them might be not to join you. And actually, when you leave space for the fact that the right decision for them might be for them to not join, you have more power in the recommendations when you believe it is the right thing. But if everybody should join you, you're selfish. If you're strategically curious to understand whether they're a good fit for you or not, and whether a problem that exists in their current world is worthy of having a better solution in working with you, your confidence grows significantly.
I think that there's so much authentic power in what you just said, Phil, and I just hope everybody heard that. Like if you allow space to realize that through consultation, you may even in your own mind go, I don't know, this guy's a great fit. Then when you do say like, Austin, bro, I think you'd fit in great with what we're looking to do, then you're saying it authentically. If you're going to say, I think you'd fit in great to everybody, then it's really hard to be authentic. I think that there's so much power there.
Chris, what did you take from that being on the receiving end?
I think to really just be as genuine as possible and ask the questions where you like I felt like you were asking the questions about me and not about you and your situation and your brokerage. And it was more understanding of that person's where the position is. I like the past, present, future because it kind of helps understand, even through the role playing of, where you could see where a person is or where their pain points are without even telling them anything about why Real is what I believe one of the best companies in the country, obviously. But that's what I appreciated, about that little exercise was just kind of that keeping that empathy alive and asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm. See how this same framework plays out in not a agent attraction scenario, but in a listing scenario. And the miss that almost everybody has at a listing appointment is they don't use past, present, and future. They only talk present and future. So present valuation, future, where do they want to go? How much money do they want to get for it, etc. They miss the past point. If somebody's going to sell their house, they've got to agree to leave the house, right? They've got to be done with the house if they're going to sell it. So if you look at this from a listing appointment point of view, is starting point of a conversation once you've got past rapport is the exact same thing. So how long have you guys been here? Well, we've been here for the last 8 years. Okay. So what made you choose this neighborhood and this house 8 years ago? Well, the kids were going to go to a school in the area and it was close to my husband's work at the time. And, oh, wow, okay. And, how's that worked out for you? Well, yeah, the house has been great. And, we had the room for the kids to be able to grow. And it was certainly good location-wise until my husband's job changed to here. And then this, and then this, and then this. Okay. So what's prompting you to think about selling right now? Oh, well, it's just too big and we don't want to maintain the space anymore. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this. So you conclude and say, so it was a good house for a good period of time? Yeah, it's been a great house, but now it's time to make a change. Yeah, it's time to make a change. So where are you going next?
Well, and I think the power in that, Phil,
movement,
is
right?
people are so ready for you to bag on their old house. like when you go to list a house, people are so ready to talk about the stains in the ceiling, the pee in the carpet. They're so ready. So when you hit them with how did you acquire this property in the first place? And they tell you the story and you're like, sounds like you made a great decision. They're like, well, what about all the ugly stuff? You're like, Forget the ugly stuff. Tell me what you love about this place. Tell me what you've loved about living here. And same thing for teams and brokerages. Like when somebody from C21 shows up to your office to say hey, Maddie, tell me about what you got going here. They're ready for you to bag on their old situation or to point out the negatives. If you're going well, tell me what you love the most about being where you've been. I think that there's so much power in putting positivity and recognition in the decisions they've made in the past. There's so much power in that.
Mm-hmm. You might have missed a specificity in one of the questions I asked in the role play with Chris, where I said, what 3 things do you like best about being at Remax? Not what do you like best about where you're currently at? What 3 things? When you ask somebody specifically what 3 things do they like best, you get a well-sequenced list because you put boundaries around it. The first thing they share with you is the first thing they could think of. It's not necessarily the most important thing. It's I've got 3 tries. What's the first one that enters my mind, comes straight out my mouth? The second one is almost always the most calculated answer to that question, i.e. the most important thing. And the third thing is their favorite nice to have. Chris, do you remember your 3 answers?
I was muted. My broker, the people in the office. I don't remember the other one.
And the third one that you said is the location of the office.
The location. Okay.
Right. So your broker came out of your mouth because you thought you should say that. The real thing that's important is you like being part of a team and that you're part of a community and that you feel like you belong to something bigger than yourself. And it's kind of nice if there's a space that you can go to hang out in real life that has a physical premise. But you see, because you've just shared 3 pieces of good news, that's what earns the right to ask that second question. If there was one thing you could change, what would the one thing be? Now you just gave me the gift that was needed, right? No room for growth. Got it. So what you want is a community, a culture where you feel like you're part of something bigger and room for growth. What did I do, though, is I took the time to put the nail in the coffin. I got Chris to tell me that there is no way he can get the growth he needs for his family by staying put. Like, he told me that is a non-negotiable. If a prospect says something, it must be true. If you say it might not be. So if I said, hey, Chris, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get the growth that you're looking for in a Remax office with 7 people where you're already at the top of the tree and there's nobody that's been there and done it, highly unlikely you're going to get the growth. You're like, no, yeah, I could. I read books. I go to conferences. I got myself a coach. I can do it where I'm at. Ah, cul-de-sac. Now I'm in trouble. Hey, Chris, how likely are you to get the growth that you need in your existing environment? Not likely at all. So it sounds to me like there's time for a change. Yeah, definitely something needs to change. Now what do? I bounce. Well, how important is it to you that you actually do get more time and more money with your next choice? Well, yeah, it's pretty darn important. Yeah, but like on a scale of 1 to 10. Oh, this needs to happen. Okay, what do you need the money for? Got to spend the money, right? Somebody says they want to make more money, spend the money, because nobody wants more money. They want what they can do with the money. Spend the money hypothetically, and now you just found out what the other person values. What's the money for? We need a new house, like we're bursting at the seams here. What's the money for? Well, I want vacations. I want more time. I want to get a little bit of standard. What's the money for? Well, we need a new car. Like, what car are you buying if you got the money? Spend the money, make it real. It allows you to close out the conversation. And if Chris said, I want to get a new car, and I found out what the car was, what do? We close the conversation at the end of the whole thing. Is like, hey, let's get to work on getting you that new Range Rover. Right? We can punctuate the entire conversation with an empathetic statement that says we understand why this matters. Hey, Chris, let's get to work on making sure that you get at least 2 weeks of a proper vacation with your family next year. Shake hands, go to work. Right? We get to punctuate even the afters that says this feels good, the direction that we're working on. Because this isn't make your calls, do your numbers, show me where you are on your leaderboard. It's let's get you some time back to go on vacation with your family. Useful? Let's push back on this. Give me as many yeah buts as possible. Where's there friction? Where would this not work?
What about like, yeah, on your comment about making money, like rev share? What if it was like, yeah, but I don't like to recruit?
Okay. You saying you don't like to or you don't know how to?
I don't like to.
Okay. What makes you say that?
I'd like to focus on my production.
Okay. And how long do you say you've been in this business?
7 years.
Okay. Sounds to me like you might have learned a little in that 7-year period.
A little bit.
Okay. You want to keep that knowledge all to yourself or you're open to share it with others?
I'm open to share it.
Okay. So what if people had just seen your success, wanted to learn from some of the things that you did and that you spent some time mentoring and guiding them too? Do you think that that would be something you'd have the capability of doing?
Yeah.
Okay. Explain to me why it wouldn't be fair and right that you got remunerated for that work.
I guess it would be fair.
Okay. So you'd rather do it for free or you'd like to get paid for it?
No, I'd like to get paid.
Okay. So we don't have to focus heavily on recruitment, but it sounds to me that you've got a lot of wisdom to share, and less experienced agents could benefit from your expertise. That's really all the recruitment piece is, should you decide to do it.
Sure.
But you do you. I mean, you can put them in my downline if you like. Does that work, Chris?
That works. That's a good idea.
The point
Maybe you
is,
have to teach me how to do agent attraction.
yeah. Brandon, what you got?
So, what about someone who just recently switched brokerages and just kind of just the hassle of going through transferring your license and whatnot, and that being the objection?
Okay.
All right, just moved brokerages, and I'm not looking to do it right now.
Okay. So what made you move?
I wasn't happy at my last brokerage.
Okay. So you made a fast move because you were desperately unhappy?
No, I looked around a little bit.
Okay. So how'd you go about choosing where you're at right now?
A few reasons. The office was close by my house, so the commute was a little better for me. I like their split structure, good education, and a good mentor program.
Okay. And how certain are you that they're the right choice for you long term?
Well, that's what I feel. I'm not sure, they are just yet, but like I said, I just moved over there, so I'm going to give them a chance.
Okay. You had a do-over and you hadn't made that decision, and you were looking at them versus us right now. You hadn't yet made the decision to make a choice. What decision would you make today if you could do a do-over?
That's a good one. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. So I guess I don't know much about your brokerage, so why don't you tell me about it?
Okay. So you're still open to making the change?
Yeah.
I'm happy to be able to share with you about this, Brandon, and I'm happy to be able to share the things we do differently. The only thing I would put out there as a precursor is that we're looking to work with committed and dedicated people.
Sure.
And that means that people that are committed to be able to go the distance and to do the work, to be able to support the team and to be able to support the culture that comes with it, is what I've learned from over 15 years in real estate, is that nobody has a silver bullet or a magic easy button that means that people can just start earning money effortlessly and easily, regardless of what anybody says. So here would be my worry for you, is that if we were to have a conversation about bringing you across to real, is that you're just going to continually be looking for the next shiny penny. Could you just give me some confidence that wouldn't be true before we go on to share some more about who we are and what we do?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, how long do you see yourself in a future career in real estate?
I'd say, at least the next 5-10 years, so I can build up enough residual income to where I don't have to do production anymore.
Okay. And how confident are you can achieve that in a standard broker model?
Well, I'm sure it could be done. Maybe not as quickly, though.
Okay. And given the choice of where you're at in your career, do you want to do this the fast way or the slow way?
The fast way, of course.
Okay. So explain to me why you're making a decision that's making this harder for you.
Yeah, I guess I'm not.
Okay. Do you want us to look at some ways we could do this together, working alongside some people that perhaps are in a similar situation to yours and are hungry and aspirational, but looking for a proven method to growth?
Sure. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Do you want to wait 6 months to see what figures out with your existing brokerage, or are you serious about making a start sooner?
No, I'm serious. I'm serious about making a start right away.
Okay. But you do you. What are we learning again? It's patience, right? There's no jumping to, here's what I think you should do. Almost everybody will talk themselves into the right solution if they get the right questions being raised towards them.
I've gotten that question a couple times, and the way I've kind of handled it, which your way is obviously much stronger, but and it kind of goes back to, well, do we even want this agent in the first place? But is the, hey, you spending the next 24, 48 hours, whatever it takes, transferring your license, going for that, through that process or whatever hassle it is, you not wanting to do that is worth your entire future, your entire financial wealth, your entire, I mean, the list goes on and on, but that's
If
how
you
I
make it as a statement, though, you're diminishing the effort that's involved in the other person's actions.
Sure. Yeah.
You're also having them not know how to tell other people that they're full of shit. Because remember what somebody's just done, right? Is they left the brokerage to join another brokerage. They told other people their reasons about why they chose this brokerage, even if the other people are just the people in their household and their friend group. And now they got to go and say, well, actually, I was wrong. I'm making a different choice again. They feel like a fool. What they want to feel is smart, capable, and good. Well, the reason that they chose, they went from okay to good. Well, they've now got better and best, but they didn't know better and best existed when they made the first choice. They knew they wanted to be able to make a decision to leave because they were desperately unhappy where they're at. So they jumped into the first boat that was open. Now that they caught their breath, they got their head up above water and said, so now what? So the other questions you get into on this is, so answer me this, is it going to be easier or harder to change your licenses in 6 months' time versus now?
No.
It'll be harder in 6 months than it would be today, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And if you had the 50-50 gateway decision, you'd rather choose us today.
Sure.
Evidence is going to say that that decision is likely to get stronger over 6 months. So you're going to wait 6 months. You're going to want to work with us more. And the only reason you're waiting is because it's hard to be able to change your license. Yet it's highly likely to be even harder in the future. Explain to me how that makes sense.
So it seems like what we're doing.
Pain of two hearts, right?
Yeah, it seems like what we're doing here, Phil, is what news channels claim they're doing, but we're actually going to really try to do it, which is let's just get down to the truth and asking a series of questions that paints as much accuracy on the past, the present, and the future, and the challenges associated with all those things in the most gravitational, truthful way, and not being afraid of it. And so, like, if somebody says, like Brandon's example, this all sounds great, but I just made a move and I'm afraid to blah, blah, blah. Like asking questions that get down to the truth of A, what their concerns are, and then B, what the actual outcome would be, without worrying about ruining some fictitious, like if people go into something with rose-colored glasses, you know what I mean? Like, there's just like this commitment to the truth in everything that you do that I think is refreshing.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you're looking to find is useful truth, right? Useful truth that can allow you to be able to move things forward. How often does the pyramid sales thing crop up in recruitment conversations for you guys?
30% of the time, maybe.
Okay.
The biggest obstacle, Phil. Oh, go ahead.
Is it always an objection? Because sometimes, right, people say, is this like one of those pyramid scheme things? You jump straight to defense. And then they say, well, the reason I ask is that my parents had a great Amway franchise and I got me through private school. And if it wasn't for what they did with Amway all those years ago, there'd be no way I'd be living in this neighborhood, let alone in this house. So sometimes that you receive something as an objection when all it was a question. So if people give you that friction of, so is this like a pyramid scheme thing? They might not necessarily be bad-mouthing. You say, well, what makes you ask? And just position it back with a question. And you might be surprised the number of times of like, I know some friends that are involved in ABC, and what they've managed to be able to create wealth-wise for themselves over the last decade is astronomical. I thought it was a joke at first, but the way I now see that they live their life, it clearly wasn't a joke, and I maybe should have listened to them a decade ago. Like a direct sales business model and a multi-level marketing business model is one of the purest business models in the land. It's one of the most honest business models in the land. The trouble with any MLM-based model is its beauty is that there is high income potential and next to no recruitment criteria. Its bad news is there is high earnings potential and next to no recruitment criteria. So what you get is you get the best and the worst in those models, and there's no way of being able to provide discipline around what's what, because unlike employed positions where people get fired for being disingenuous, sometimes people can operate in the way of being able to tell lies. But there is not.
Hey, Phil.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I love that. So Riley put a question on there, and I'm curious how you would handle this. So an objection in a similar ecosystem to ours is, I'm afraid, or it would be hard to leave behind what I've currently built in the form of revenue share, or even on the team level, there's always this, I want to come over, but I've got to close these deals out, like the pending business issue. Mm-hmm. And the thing that is consistent with both of them is if someone's already built a network somewhere else, that's not going to go anywhere. So they would always have to walk away from that money. And if somebody has 3 deals in escrow right now, then chances are in 6 months, they're still going to have 3 new deals in it. Like, so those 2 pending income issues never go away.
Help me understand the practical nuances of I've got 3 deals in escrow and I'm changing brokerage. I don't understand what actually happens there. So just talk me through that.
So depending on the company they're with, they may be having to leave the escrow. Well, generally people have to leave the escrow at the old brokerage, but a lot of times there's a financial penalty attached to it. A lot of agents that would come and interview don't even know what their contract says. So they're like, well, I've got 3 deals in escrow, and if I leave now, like, I don't even know what my broker is going to do with it. And so then, so that's an issue. But then the long issue of that is, yes, there may be income in jeopardy, but the flip side of that is, what do you do? Get to a point to where you have no deals in escrow to leave? That's not good either. So right. So the issue is always pending commission, or to Riley's question, like pending revenue share that never goes anywhere either.
Okay.
And just to unpack even further, Joe, like on the revenue share side, like obviously there's a couple different models that are similar in ways, but like, let's say you have someone with an established organization with 200 people that they've been building for the past 36 months, let's say, we might be of the opinion that, say, Real is a better model, but the pain is not strong enough for them to shift that entire organization over, because they don't know what the attrition is going to look like, and if they can pull all those people over, and if they're making 30, 40 grand a month already, how are we painting that vision so that the grass is greener on the other side, or maybe it isn't, right? I guess that's a point too, but I've ran into that several times.
Well, I think on that bigger question, these are the slow play opportunities that aren't necessarily going to jump straight away, right? Is you got to remain front of mind until something tricks in your favor that's like, hang on, I'm coming this way and I'm coming with you. So we go back to soccer. It's like, do you play for Man United or do you play for Real Madrid? It's not that you're leaving something that is broken to something that is awesome. It's good and established and highly appreciated by a fan base to go to somewhere new and unknown that could be marginally better than what we've currently got. The risk reward ratio might sound too challenging. I think sometimes you've got to decide, like, are these the fish that you're trying to catch? Which is why I might then go back to the 666 thing and say, yes, they're in my top aspirational 6, and I'm going to keep working them and know there might be a slower pipeline. But I can't spend all my effort and energy on these hard to catch fish and expect to be able to feed my family. Need to be able to play those lower tiers as well so that I can keep putting oxygen into the system so I can keep running the distance. You got to play both those games. Because I think it's real. In these scenarios, though, where people are fearful of walking away, what I jump straight to is, what's the worst case scenario? Like, let's not try and gild this lily in any way. So you got 3 deals in escrow right now. What's the worst that happens if you decide to come across to us? So even if they don't know their terms of the contract, what's the worst that happens?
Worst that happens is the broker assigns them to another agent and I lose all my commission.
Okay. And how much is that commission?
Total, it would be about $32,000.
Okay. And how much of that $32,000 do you have in your bank account right now?
How much of that 32,000?
Yeah.
0.
Okay. So we're talking about money you don't yet have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And if that commission didn't arrive to you in any way, shape, or form, what difference would that make to your life?
Probably would affect the ability I have to make my mortgage payment.
Okay. Would it affect your ability to the point that you might find yourself homeless, or would it just make you a little less comfortable?
It would make me a lot less comfortable.
Okay. How much extra money a year do you think you're going to make working with Real?
I think the potential is there to make $50,000 to $60,000 more a year than I'm currently making.
Okay. And that's every year?
Well, hopefully it would grow every year, but in the next 12 months.
So easy 60,000 a year extra. How long do you see yourself
Sure.
staying in production?
Another 7 to 10 years.
So let's just even be pessimistic on this. That's 7 years at 60,000 a year extra, assuming no growth and assuming only 7 years. So we've got 7 times 6, that's $420,000. If I offered you an investment today that said you had to put $32,000 of your hard-earned money into it, that was highly likely to deliver you $420,000 over 7 years, how soon would you sign the contract?
Immediately.
Okay. What if you knew that you might get to be able to keep part, all of, or some of that $32,000 stake as well?
It's even better.
Well, that's what we're talking about. So if you're going to hold on to a potential $32,000 to walk away from an extra $60,000 a year, one of two things needs to be at risk. Either you cannot afford to live without that $32,000, or you don't believe you're going to make the extra money. Which one is it?
Off script, it's generally that they can't go without the money that they're due.
Okay. So now we can dig into this a little. So here's what needs to happen next, right? Is when we get a copy of your contract. Can you dig out a copy of your contract?
Yep.
And the good news is that I've been in this situation a few times before. I know how to read a contract. I know what to look for. Would it help if you could send it to me so I could take a look and so that you knew what you're getting into before you move forward with any great progression?
Absolutely. Although, side note, I know there is some issues around this with brokerage stuff where agents are reading other people's contracts and providing legal advice, but I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, but I'm going to get to the bottom of being able to find out what they're really at risk for money-wise, and then help them make a smart decision around that. And some of that smart, patient decision might just need to be honest of digging into some truth around their own financial situation and looking at those worst case scenarios and being brave enough to get into, okay, so if that didn't happen and if you didn't get another deal, then you'd do that on a credit card, or you'd pull that from a line of credit, or that you'd have the ability to be able to do that from an equity point of view, or we might have to hustle some rentals, or I tell you what I will do is that if you do make the decision to come across, I've got something that's happening in your area that I'm going to plug you into, like some form of sweetener that creates movement. You might need to have them help realize that they have got at least a little bit of a parachute that gives them that ability to be able to come across.
Well, and I think the key
fear is
that you're talking about, the key that you're talking about is painting in the extremities. Like,
right.
I think so often in these conversations, we just kind of stay right here that we never really want to dig into, well, let's walk this down. Let's say you never get paid on those 3 deals. What would it actually do to you financially? And do you believe what we believe is possible for your career with us here? And like painting in those extremities, then saying, well, it seems to me like, and kind of bridging that gap. So often people leave and they're like, yeah, I'll get you a copy of that contract. And then we don't hear from them again till the next time their career's in crisis and or they close that bit. You know what I mean? So it's like, we almost have to be comfortable painting in those extremities.
Look at the smart, capable, and good feeling that we talked about earlier in that scenario. How smart does the person feel about walking away from $32,000 in this scenario?
Not very. Until you walk through the whole thing.
Until they realize that, hang on, this is 32 grand in for 420 grand out. They can now even have the conversation with their spouse or their family members at home, and they might be able to say, like, hey, honey, like, we're doing this, and it's going to mean we're going to have to tighten our belts up a little. And it means that in the short term, we might have to do blank, blank, and blank. And I know that we said we get a new car, but we might have to put that off till Q1 of next year. And but like, they can have this conversation actively with whoever else is involved in that decision-making process because they feel smart enough to be able to do it. They talk through the capabilities, and at the end of it, they feel good. The what they're doing is that they are risking 3 deals in escrow, but for the greater good. I mean, if you were a franchise opportunity that was 32,000 to be able to buy in, you'd still be a cheap franchise. And I think sometimes being able to play out these comparisons that says, well, actually, let's build the value comparison trap in another direction. Because you can't keep them their money if that's not a possibility. When somebody says that I've got a rev share at 40,000 a month based on something I've built elsewhere, I might come at that and say, well, how certain are you that that rev share is safe forever? Because we know the answer to that question, right? Is often not certain. Sometimes that rev share is attached to privately owned companies that have the ability to be able to change those circumstances on people overnight. Isn't that what's happened recently? So all you got to do is create a seed of doubt that they're calling it 40 grand a month for the rest of their life. You might have to get them to realize that that isn't necessarily true. I know it brings shade on your rev share in the same way, but nothing's guaranteed and nothing's certain. Sometimes it's easier to be able to play that truth. When somebody is playing against you that they've got a guaranteed golden ticket that's going to pay them forever, is have them realize that none of us have. Just have them commit to which company structure they believe in more so, which leadership team they believe in more so, which is most likely to be able to stay true to its promise for a sustained period of time. Have them answer those questions instead. Your responsibility in this agent attraction piece is to get the right people looking at you, to interrupt the days of the people that you'd like to look at you more effectively with compliments, recognitions, and ask for opinion. And then when you get into conversations, do past, present, and future. When you hit resistance, go to worst case scenario as quickly and comfortably as you can. Stay impartial in the decision-making process, but stay responsible for helping people make the right decision. And ask as many meaningful questions as possible without interrogating or sounding like you're leading the witness. so that they can reach their own conclusion that the direction you'd like them to travel in is the one that's right for them. It's that easy and also that hard.
You want to repeat that one more time?
Well, the whole job description?
No, I got the first two. I just need the last four.
I don't remember.
It was so good. Come on, man.
What did I say? It's the first thing that we need to do is to identify the people that we're looking to try and be able to work with. We then have to interrupt enough of those people's days for long enough to maybe win some attraction, attention towards us. We can use opinion. We can use recognition. We can use the compliment. When their eyes are on us, we want visibility, credibility, authenticity, and then let them know how they can step available towards us. When we find ourselves in conversation, we're looking to do a past, present, future arc to find out that their existing circumstances is not where they see themselves running for the future, to have them to be able to commit to the fact that they do see themselves in this industry for the future and they'd like to do so with people that care about the same things that they care about. And when then you run into a problem head on, stay patient, stay committed to helping them make that decision, and be prepared to go to worst case scenario and help them realize that when they stare the monster in the face, quite often the monster isn't as scary as they thought it was. And the monster is actually just a tiny little pet that requires a small piece of attention to get them towards the bigger outcome that they knew was right. Note that this agent attraction piece is a profession. It's a skill. Not witty one-liners or copy-paste posts. And the people that you're looking to better bring on board to your organization, if they move too easily, you probably don't want them anyway. Because if they move to you too easily, what will they do again? They're going to move easily. Like, you don't have just a head count drives production. Committed head count that is there for the duration, that shares the same values and is aligned towards the same outcomes that you're looking to try and achieve. That's what starts to compound. And the danger of an MLM-based model is you're going to compound whatever you attract. So if you recruit a ton of whingers and complainers, you're going to compound that too. Scaled whingers and complainers. You recruit a ton of lazy people, you're just going to compound an army of lazy people. So make sure that you are bringing in the people that you want to do business with and the ones that you're happy to hang out with and the ones that you're happy to take a phone call from at 10 o'clock at night that need some of your help. So I'm hopeful that you folks have enjoyed some of our time here together today, just to be able to jam on this agent attraction piece in a way that isn't a, here's one I prepared earlier and this is the guaranteed scripting to get you to be able to convert every recruiting conversation. What I would like to get from each of you that are here and able to do so is what is something you're going to do differently? What are the big takeaways that you've taken from here that are going to allow you to have more intentionality around the conversations that you have around agent attraction? We put that in the chat. We can open microphones. I'm sure you're all sick of my voice, so we can hear some others.
I think the past, present, and future posing through a conversation makes a ton of sense, just to get somebody involved in the conversation and not feel like you're talking at them.
Mm-hmm. You can practice it in so many other areas, Austin, too. Like, even think about, a buyer lead. Buyer lead comes on and is, so how long have you been thinking about, wanting to own a home? Where are you living right now? How long have you been there? Like, let's stay in that space for a little longer. And we learn a lot more in a safe space. What everybody jumps straight towards is, how long have you been looking? What are you looking for? What's your budget? Are you pre-approved? Feels like can't keep up.
So Phil, I joined a little late, but one of the key takeaways for me, and you were chatting about it earlier, it was funny because I was thinking it right as you were saying it, but how much of that agent attraction meeting is in line or in tune with a listing appointment, because they're really close to the same. And I don't know if this is Joe's reference or one he maybe snagged from you, but when we're talking about that, and what a lot of agents are guilty of when they sit down at either a listing appointment or an agent, attraction meeting, is they immediately just start gurgitating all, everything about them, everything about their brokerage, and there's pretty much zero questions asked. And so he says, imagine, or maybe it was one of my old real estate coaches, but imagine a bucket or a trash can sitting next to you, and a bucket or a trash can sitting next to them, and you're wanting to fill your bucket full of their information rather than the other way around. And it just kind of stems from asking those questions and knowing how to properly ask them. And so I think you inspired me there quite a bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Brandon. What else? What else?
I had mentioned, say, Anthony, that it's not a script. It's more of, you're going to have patience to be uncomfortable in the conversation and listen to what they're actually saying, so you can respond with the past, present, and future, instead of, like you said, agent attraction is a skill. It's not a scalable script that you just regurgitate person after person after person. And each situation and circumstance and individual is similar, but still very different.
Mm-hmm. And staying detached from the outcome.
Yep.
Like the outcome doesn't really matter to you. Like you want a certain outcome, but only if certain criteria is true.
You're having an opportunity to meet with a person that could possibly come to Real, could possibly come to your team, or could just possibly be your friend.
Correct. Or possibly just be a one-time acquaintance.
Yeah.
Could just be that too.
Gotta go to the bathroom. Don't come back.
Yeah. Awesome. And anything else that people want to share in terms of actions they're going to take away, key thoughts that they're going to put into practice following today?
I think for me, Phil, and you and I have done this dance so many times, I'm not being intentional enough. Like there are not 18 people. There are not avatars or personas. I am guilty of what Katie was talking about, which is I just try to throw a bunch of seeds out in the field and see what grows. And I'm not purposely looking for the right type of people, is number one. And I think another big thing is just not being afraid of the truth, like digging deep enough in all of my conversations to understand the person, their past, present, and future. And I talk about this so much, but I don't do it enough to really understand what's behind your willingness to even have this conversation. What have you built so far? What do you love about it? What's your current world? What are your hopes and dreams? And then just allowing the truth to manifest, whether or not A, I'm a good fit for them, and B, they're a good fit for me. Because I can certainly fall into, this is great for everyone. And I think anyone in this type of ecosystem can, but being purposeful to realize maybe I'm not for everyone and everyone's not for me. And I find freedom in that type of conversation, so that at the end of it, I'm like, Anthony, I love you, man. I think this would be great for you. I think you'd be great for me. Like, this would be wonderful to do together. And then there will be times where I'm like, hey, it doesn't seem like it's a great fit. Maybe you're not a great fit for us. Maybe we're not a great fit for you. There seems to be freedom.
And there's freedom in the truth of finding out things about people's money situation. Like you might find that they got $32,000 in escrow. It's due to close within the next 60 days. And they need that $32,000, but not necessarily the next $32,000 that comes from it. Like, that money's already spent. There already is some form of means for that to be able to go somewhere else in their personal life. But providing they get that money and that closes in the next 60 days, they're good to be able to make a move with you 61 days from now. And if that is their truth and you get to the bottom of that truth, then just be patient. What is now all your future conversation about? How are those deals holding up? Yeah, they look like they're going. Closing table. In fact, I got one next Friday. Okay, what about the other two? Yeah, the one should be 2 Fridays after that, and the final one should be done, by end of October. Got it. And once they're done, you feel confident about the fact you can still move forward and we can get you working on your goals and your dreams of what's next. Yeah, for sure. So you just stay in the conversation, but you just shifted the finish line out of it. That is it. Is help people. Don't try and sell your products and services. Help people. Well, I appreciate everyone showing up today. I'm going to give you back some.
Hey, Phil, I've got a quick question. So once you identify your avatar and you have your 3 buckets, like what do you recommend saying to help us get into these deeper conversations? Like how do we get into these appointments? Do you have any suggestions there?
To actually physically get to the appointment?
Well, yeah, or just like anything to get it from like, hey, I'm staying in front of you, I'm being visible, to now we're in dialogue.
Okay. There's a ratio that has appeared in almost every industry that I've ever worked in, which is a ratio I call 10-5-2. If you can have 10 meaningful appointments with people that meet your target market, 5 of them have a genuine need for what you're about, and 2 of them will go on to do business with you. The mistake that many people make is they want to say, just get me the 5 and I'll get the 2. Get me the 5, I'll get the 2. They don't want to have the 10-5 meetings. The kind of meetings that you're looking to have from an agent attraction point of view are looser, softer, almost warm market leads, as opposed to full-on interviews about, we should talk to you about what Real have to offer. So I'm looking for any excuse I possibly can to get a cup of coffee with somebody, a cocktail with somebody, a bite of dinner with somebody, a walk in the park with somebody, a shared fitness class with somebody, like anything that could be that allows you to then have the window to be able to ask questions like, so how'd you get involved in real estate in the first place? You with me? And well, you know, I was doing this and I just fell into it, etc. So how long have you been an agent since then? And what made you decide you wanted to do it in the first place? You see how we can get into a colloquial conversation, ask those questions. We create opportunity in the moment. So that's where I'll be using things like, hey, I see you're at that event the other day. Love us to be able to just connect up over a coffee, find out what some of your key lessons were from being at ABC event. Almost, you think about the dating world is the number of times that somebody might have said, hey, let's meet for a drink. Nobody was interested in the beverage. Right? The beverage wasn't the purpose of the meeting, but it just became permission for us to be able to meet to explore further possibilities. So that's what I'd be doing, Matt, is I'd be looking to find ways of having meetings where the agenda is relatively loose. And that could be you have a box at a game somewhere. It could be that you like to be able to go for a walk in the park and people can come and join with you. But whatever fits good for you, just to be able to get 15, 20 minutes with a prospect without them knowing that they're to be pitched real, just for you to have no other purpose than creating a genuine opportunity.
And Matt, I think you'd be surprised. I've started to reach out for coffee and lunch meetings in like my local market, and the amount of agents that I reach out to and say, hey, Matt, let's grab lunch next week. No one says no, or no one says, are you going to pitch me on Real? They're all like, yeah, sure. Where do you want to go? You know what I mean? So setting up those meetings and then having the conversation and not pitching creates more curiosity than, trying to be like, hey, I want more people to come to Real. Who can I talk to? Like, just have your list and then start setting lunch meetings, setting coffee meetings, grabbing a drink, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And then they bring it up, and that's the space you want to be in.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
I'd build multiple versions. Like the bigger fish you might want to catch, you might need the podcast interview, more formal ruse of being able to create them, or you're putting a panel together of experienced agents at an event that you're running locally. Like you're looking to be able to create a moment before the moment so you can get permission to have the agent attraction conversation. If you get straight from let's meet so you can pitch me Real, you're on the back foot from the start. Any other quick questions before we release the class?
Is your speaker class completely filled? Completely unrelated to this call?
My November one?
Yeah.
I have one seat at the table. There's 11 booked. There's 12 seats at the table.
Okay.
Phil, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks
for showing up, participating, commenting, sharing. all this stuff matters so much. It matters what you say, it matters how you say it. And as we learned today, it matters who you say it to. And, you know, I think there's so much freedom, and let's find people that we're a good fit for and who are a good fit for us, and feel like you're one of our guys. You're a great fit for us, and hopefully we're a great fit for you. We appreciate everything you do.
Hey, my pleasure. And all of you here are live on the call. If you find yourself in a situation where you're implementing, you're executing, and you want to just bounce something off me before you move something forward, just ping me on Instagram, etc., or just say that, hey, I was in the call with Joe and I'm at this point. What might you do here? And we can continue this Q&A in real time as things crop up in your world. Really happy for you to do so. Just make sure you mention that, you know, we connected here, and that'll make it easier for me to get memory pegs back to what it is that I've shared with you that we can build on.
Thank you very much for your time, man.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Look forward to bumping into something.
Thanks,
in the
Phil.
world. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.